Night. The dinner on the table had gone cold. Rose shook her slightly sore arms from drawing and glanced at the European-style pendulum clock. It was 1 a.m. Rex had not returned yet. After marriage, the only thing she asked of him was not to stay out overnight, but in the end, he still broke his promise. Rose felt a lump in her throat and raised her stiff hand to continue sketching, when suddenly her wrist began to twitch uncontrollably. At that moment, the sound of the door opening was heard. Rose pressed down on her hand, waiting for the trembling to stop before going to open the door. Rex stood wearily at the doorway, pushing her away before she could even approach. "Get out of here." Rose barely steadied herself, suppressing the bitterness in her heart as she asked, "Is the company keeping you busy?" Silence was the only reply she received. Rose had long grown accustomed to this way of interaction, yet every time Rex ignored her, her heart couldn't help but ache. Rose lowered her head with a bitter smile, and by the time she looked up again, she had regained her composure. She walked step by step to the study, continuing to sort through the messy sketches. Perhaps only by keeping busy could she fill the emptiness in her heart. Rex walked into the study after showering, watching her tidying up, and suddenly spoke coldly. "No need to clean up." Rose froze with her hand raised, turned to look at him. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have made such a mess." "Please don't be angry." Rex didn't lose his temper for the first time, just looked at her calmly. "Let's get a divorce." Rose felt her heart suddenly tighten, her hands trembling uncontrollably as the sketches she was holding scattered to the ground. Catching sight of Rex's look of disgust, she quickly hid her shaking hands behind her back and asked bitterly, "Why?" Rex stepped closer to her, his gaze cold as he said, "You've been very obedient these past 3 years, name your terms, and I'll do my best to meet them." Rose remained silent. She had long known their marriage wouldn't last, but she hadn't expected it to end so soon. After 3 years of marriage, this man before her had not touched her even once. He was the most familiar person, yet also the most distant. Rex grew impatient as she remained silent. 5 million, is that enough?" he snapped. Rose's hands trembled even more violently. She lifted her gaze to Rex and said, word by word, "I don't want money. I want a child. If you want a child, go adopt one. What's the point of telling me? I'll have my assistant send you the divorce papers tomorrow." With that, Rex headed to the second-floor bedroom. Rose's gaze followed his retreating figure, dimming with sorrow. Today was the day Rex had spoken to her the most, yet it was also the day that pierced her heart the deepest. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The next day, Rose walked into the company in a daze. As the Darren Family Group's design director, she had never taken leave without special circumstances. Just as she reached the office door, she found her belongings had been thrown out. The general manager of the HR department said to her, "Mrs. Rose, sorry, but your office is now being used by Ms. Sylvia." Ms. Sylvia, Darren Group. When did they get a new design director? Before she could figure it out, a stunning figure caught her eye. The newcomer wore a pristine white dress, her sleek black hair cascading over her shoulders as she smiled warmly and said, "Hello, I'm Sylvia, the new design director, and Rex's first love." Rose looked at Sylvia and froze for a moment. The woman before her was dressed exactly the same, and upon closer inspection, their features were strikingly similar. No wonder Rex had always looked at her in a way that made her feel he was seeing someone else. So, this woman was the one he truly loved. Rose felt as if her heart was being sliced by a knife, yet she calmly asked, "You're the design director now, then what does that make me?" Sylvia seemed unprepared for Rose's question. She looked helplessly at the HR manager nearby. Like a wounded little white rabbit, the HR manager, ever the opportunist, shrilly declared, "Rose, the CEO said you'll be assigned as Miss Sylvia's assistant from now on." So it was Rex's order. Rose felt as though a boulder had crashed into her chest. She didn't want to stay here being Sylvia's spectacle, so she turned and took the elevator directly to the CEO's office on the top floor. She wanted to ask Rex why he had removed her from her position. CEO's office. Rose pushed the door open. "Mr. Rex, the position of design director was something I worked tirelessly to earn. How could you just remove me like this?" Rex just looked at her coldly. "Get out." Rose stood still without moving. Today, he must give her an explanation, or she would never leave. Rex sat on the chair and looked at her disdainfully. "Sylvia graduated from Chris Academy, studied in France for 3 years, won the Milan Design First Prize, and her father is the CEO of Porter Group. What do you have?" Rose tightened the hand hanging at her side slightly, her voice soft. "So, is it because of these outstanding qualifications and background, or because she's Sylvia?" A moment of silence. Rex never expected that the usually obedient and well-behaved Rose could also be sarcastic. Get out. After he spoke, several secretaries directly escorted Rose into the elevator. Rose didn't know how she walked out of Darren's family group. The rain outside was heavy, and she was drenched all the way home. When she got home, she was alone in the house. When she married Rex, she thought he would be her salvation, but she never expected Rose to have such a headache whenever she thought about it. Dripping wet, she didn't even change her clothes and went straight to the studio, grasping the brush and sketching designs. It seemed she could avoid thinking about Rex for a few days. Rose shut herself in the studio. Rex never returned. Perhaps from drawing too long, her hands began trembling uncontrollably again. A designer's hands are their lifeline. She had gone to the hospital before and learned she had developed Parkinson's syndrome. Parkinson's syndrome, a disease typically affecting the elderly, had inexplicably struck her. Her hands trembled violently, making it impossible to continue painting. She walked into the living room and turned on the TV, only to hear the news playing. Recently, Darren Family Group's former director Rose was exposed for plagiarizing the works of international jewelry master Carey. Currently, Darren Family Group's president Rex has held a press conference, publicly admitting the incident and stating that legal action will be pursued against Rose. Thud, the remote control fell from her hand. Rose couldn't shake off those words echoing in her mind. Rex had accused her of plagiarism. Every piece of her work was designed stroke by stroke with her own hands. How could it be plagiarism? At the same time, the villa's front door was opened by someone. Rose looked up at the person approaching. Mom, slap. As soon as the words left her mouth, Tina delivered a heavy slap across her face. The air fell silent. Tina stared at Rose with reddened eyes. Who allowed you to tarnish the reputation of the Darren family? Have you forgotten that if it weren't for the Darren family, our Chester family would have been ruined long ago? Rose's face stiffened, numb to the pain, her eyes burning slightly. Mom, I didn't. Whether you did or not, we can't afford to offend the Darren family. Go apologize to Rex right now. Rose stood frozen in place, unmoving. Tina grabbed her clothes fiercely and shouted, Go now. Are you disobeying me too? Mom, I want to divorce Rex. Before she could finish speaking, Tina shoved her forcefully against the wall. Bang! That was the sound of a head hitting the wall. Rose's head buzzed violently, gritting her teeth against the pain. She looked at Tina and said, Mom, I can earn money. I'll support you in your old age. Can't we just stop clinging to Darren's family? How could your meager earnings compare to Darren's family? Let me tell you, I'm not going anywhere except Darren's house. Tina heaved with anger, grabbing Rose's wrist and dragging her outside. Unless you're dead, don't even think about divorce. Rose stumbled dizzily as she was pulled out of the villa, staring at the gloomy sky. Her nose stung with unshed tears. It was him who wanted to leave. Tina's movements suddenly froze as she turned to look at Rose. What did you say? The one he likes has returned, Rose silently uttered, as raindrops the size of beans began to fall one by one. They struck her face, cold as ice. After a long silence, Tina gazed at the vast villa and suddenly commanded, Kneel down. Rose stood frozen in place, seemingly unable to believe it. What? Tina forced her to kneel on the ground. I'm going to find Rex. You stay kneeling here until he agrees not to divorce, understand? Rose's heart sank instantly. Tina crouched before her again, stroking her face. My daughter is the most sensible. It's just a woman, isn't it? Tell Rex that no matter who he likes, you don't care. With that, Tina hurried away. Rose knelt in the rain, watching her retreating figure, tears mingling with rainwater streaming down her face. Mom, I'm so tired. Rose knelt outside the villa for a full day and night, until a Bentley drove into the estate at dawn. The man stepped out in his tailored suit, his long legs carrying him forward, his narrow eyes filled with disgust the moment they landed on her. Tell your mother, even if you kneel to death at Darren's house, this divorce is happening. Rex looked down at her condescendingly. Rose lifted her pale, bloodless face, just as she was about to speak. She saw Rex followed by two uniformed lawyers. One of the lawyers handed her an official document. Ms. Rose, you are suspected of plagiarism, seriously infringing upon the interests of the Darren family's company. This is a subpoena. Rose's pupils contracted as she looked up at Rex and said, I didn't do it. You know that. Many of her works were completed at home, often with Rex present. I don't know, Rex said coldly. Rose heard this and hurriedly got up from the muddy water. I have the draft. I'll find it for you now. As she was about to return to the studio, Rex suddenly grabbed her wrist. No need to look anymore. What do you mean? Rose felt inexplicably flustered. Before long, she saw thick smoke billowing from the direction of the studio. Her paintings, she struggled, wanting to rush to put out the fire, but Rex held her tightly in his arms. Rose suddenly understood. Her voice was hoarse. Why? Rex looked at her coldly. Because you're in Sylvia's way. Rose staggered, looking at him in disbelief. Today was the first time he held her, but at the cost of destroying everything she had worked for. The fire in the studio burned for an hour. All the handmade drafts turned to dust in the end. Rose stood there numbly, watching 3 years of her hard work go up in flames, from day to night. Even Rex's final deadline for divorce before he left didn't register with her. Outside, the rain was drizzling. Rose rummaged through and pulled out some ashes and debris, picking them up one by one, clutching them in her hand as she slowly walked back to the room. She took out a box and stored them inside, as if sealing away her former dreams. Just as she closed the box, snap, the box fell to the ground. Rose knew she was having another episode. Suppressing the pain in her body, Rose stiffly bent over and suddenly felt a chill at the tip of her nose. Then she saw streaks of bright red dripping onto the floor, in the silent room. She leaned against the wall and gazed out the window, letting out a long sigh. Thinking of her mother, Rose endured the pain, took out a tissue to cover her nose, and got up to head to the city hospital, neurology department. Rose's attending physician Clyde performed a basic examination on her, his sharp brows slightly furrowed. According to the test results, the nosebleeds are caused by sepsis, a complication of Parkinson's disease. Sepsis typically only appears when the disease has progressed to its late stages. How exactly have you been taking care of your body? Rose stared blankly. Dr. Clyde, could you please prescribe me some more medication then? Clyde handed the medical report directly to her. Medication can only improve your quality of life and work. It cannot stop the progression of the disease. You will eventually lose the ability to live independently. Have your family members come to handle this? He stood up and prepared to leave. After speaking, Rose hurriedly grabbed the hem of his clothes. Just proceed with the surgery. My family can't come. Clyde paused for a moment, then gently advised. This kind of illness isn't something you can fight alone. Once it reaches the late stage, even money won't help. Rose lowered her head, and only after a long while did she look up at Clyde, her eyes devoid of any light. I have no family. Clyde looked at the woman's pale face, as if understanding something, and said solemnly, then I'll prescribe you medicine one last time. Rose received the medicine and underwent some basic treatment. Because of this illness, her muscles were stiff, and by the time she got home, it was already 10 p.m. With great effort, she pushed open the door and saw Rex sitting on the living room sofa with a conspicuous divorce agreement. She instantly averted her gaze, as if doing so would make it disappear from sight. Why are you back so late? Rex finally caught sight of her and spoke impatiently. She had never come home late before. This was a first. Rose tightened her grip on her bag, not wanting him to see the medical report inside. I was at a friend's place for a while. Rex narrowed his eyes. Over the past 3 years, he had known Rose's social circle inside out. Aside from her vampire mother, where would she even have a friend? He had no interest in exposing her lie and pushed the agreement on the coffee table forward slightly. Sign it. Rose stiffened, as if she hadn't heard him, and walked toward the second floor. Rex walked over, grabbed her arm, brought her to the contract, and placed the pen in her hand. Sign. Rose held the pen, staring at the densely packed words on the contract, yet couldn't make them out clearly no matter how hard she tried. She shook her head mechanically. My mom said I can't get divorced. Who would have thought Rex's single sentence would instantly plunge her into an icy abyss? She's pregnant and can't wait. Boom, a thunderclap sounded outside as a torrential downpour began to fall. Rose's face turned deathly pale. Rex looked at her dazed expression and impatiently grabbed her hand, forcing her to sign at the end of the agreement. Here's a $5 million check. After signing, Rex placed the check in front of her and was about to leave when the woman suddenly grabbed the hem of his coat. Rose gazed at him with an unprecedented emptiness in her eyes, and Rex felt an inexplicable pang in his heart. But then he heard Rose say, you cheated during our marriage, and now you think you can just pay me off with $5 million. The last trace of guilt in Rex's heart vanished completely. Disgusted, he pushed away Rose's hand. You and Tina are truly mother and daughter, cut from the same cloth. Back then, Tina had forced Rose into his bed for money, exposed it to the media, and pressured him into marriage. Over the past 3 years, Tina has taken money from Darren's family under various pretexts, and he has turned a blind eye to it. But now, Rose dares to bargain with him. Rose seemed to ignore his insulting words and simply extended her hand to him. The revenue I generated for Darren's family amounts to no less than $10 billion a year, totaling $30 billion over 3 years. as joint marital property. You owe me 15 billion. Additionally, each painting from my studio is worth 600,000 when sold. You destroyed 874 of them. You owe me 524,400,000. After enunciating each word clearly, she turned her gaze to the $5 million check. Apart from this 5 million, Mr. Rex, you still owe me 15,519,400,000. Please, Mr. Rex, repay me in full. Rex stared at her in disbelief. After a long pause, a mocking smile curled at the corner of his lips. Rose, you never cease to amaze me. He left the villa with a dark expression on his face. Bang, the door was slammed shut. Rose swayed and sat back on the sofa, staring blankly at the check on the table and the Rex signed divorce agreement left for her. Eyes brimmed with moisture before I even realized it. Outside, the wind howled fiercely, making the agreement rustle noisily in its grasp. As for that check, no one knew where the wind had blown it by the next day. Rose was awakened by the ringing of the phone. Her head was pounding as she answered the call, only to hear the tearful voice of her assistant Jason on the other end. Mrs. Rose, when are you coming back? All the jewelry you previously designed has become Sylvia's, and she even took your Butterfly Shadow series to compete in a contest. Does Darren's family copyright department know about this? She remembered that every piece of her work had been registered under her own copyright. The copyright department said the copyright was initially registered under Sylvia's name, using her personal information, so all her 3 years' work has become Sylvia's. Bang, the phone slipped from her hand. Mrs. Rose, are you still there? Mrs. Rose. Rose felt a deafening roar in her head, a cold sensation at the tip of her nose, and blood dripping uncontrollably. Drip, drip. The phone screen was stained red. On the phone, Jason anxiously said, Ms. Rose, what should we do? Sylvia has already gone to LS Jewelry International. Rose leaned back on the sofa. I see. LS International. Rose rushed to the venue but was impatiently shooed away by security. No matter how she explained, the guards wouldn't listen. I told you, no invitation, no entry. Rose was so anxious that she broke into a sweat. Yet there was nothing she could do. Just as she was about to be escorted out of the venue, a cool, composed voice suddenly rang out from behind. She's my guest. A man in a perfectly tailored suit stepped forward and handed over his invitation. Rose turned to look and was surprised to find that it was Dr. Clyde. Without time for pleasantries, she thanked Clyde hurriedly and entered the venue. Inside the venue, sets of jewelry were being moved by staff to the exhibition area. Rose quickly spotted her own designed Shadow Butterfly series and walked straight over to stop them. No one touches this Shadow Butterfly collection. Not far away, Sylvia stood in the crowd in a stunning dress, her cheerful laughter fading as she glanced this way. Her eyes turning cold, she walked straight over, seemingly ignoring Rose as she questioned the staff. What's going on? Why is my exhibit still here? Sorry, Miss Sylvia. This lady claims the Butterfly Shadow series is her work and won't let us submit it for the competition. The staff member gave Rose a reproachful look. Sylvia seemed to notice Rose only then. Her eyes filled with confusion. Miss Rose, oh no, Mrs. Rose. Why are you here instead of going to work? Naturally, to take back what's mine. Rose stared directly at Sylvia. Miss Sylvia, didn't your prestigious overseas education teach you what it means? To take without asking is theft. Sylvia stiffened. As the people around slowly turned to look, she curled her lips slightly. Mrs. Rose, you can eat carelessly, but you can't speak carelessly. As the first prize winner of Milan Design, how could I steal the work of a plagiarist? Upon hearing Sylvia's words, the crowd's suspicious gazes all fell upon Rose. Rose, however, remained unfazed. If that's the case, then please produce the original design drafts for the Butterfly Shadow piece. Sylvia froze for a moment. Since Butterfly Shadow wasn't hers to begin with, where could she possibly get the drafts? The draft is at the company, she said. Rose gave a cold smile. The draft isn't at the company. It's because you never had one in the first place. With that, she directly pulled out the draft of Shadow Butterfly from her bag, then looked around and declared loudly, I am the designer of the Shadow Butterfly series, and I demand the organizers immediately disqualify Sylvia from the competition. Many reporters at the venue had long noticed the tension brewing in this area. Seeing Rose produce the original draft, they swarmed around Sylvia one by one. Ms. Sylvia, did you really bring someone else's work to compete? Ms. Sylvia, isn't this unethical of you? Ms. Sylvia. Sylvia staggered, her face turning deathly pale. At that moment, a tall figure stepped forward from behind to steady her. When the reporters saw who had arrived, they immediately fell silent. How dare you frame my people? Rex cast a cold gaze around before finally fixing his eyes on Rose. Who gave you permission to steal the drafts of the Butterfly Shadow series? As these words fell, an uproar erupted. Rose stared at Rex in disbelief, her eyes filled with desolation. Her voice was nearly hoarse. What did you say? As she spoke, a chill touched the tip of her nose, and blood began to flow uncontrollably. Flustered, she lowered her head and pulled out tissues to wipe it away, but no matter how hard she tried, the bleeding wouldn't stop, staining the draft in her hands crimson. As if Rex didn't see it, he said to the reporter, Rose, as the former design director of Darren's family, not only plagiarized but also committed embezzlement. Darren's family has already reported it to the police. Embezzlement reported to the police. Soon a group of reporters surrounded Rose, while Rex led Sylvia away without hesitation. Rose, she didn't know how she managed to escape from the crowd of reporters. By the time she reached outside the venue, her entire body was covered in blood, the tissues had run out, and she could only clumsily wipe with her hands. Tears involuntarily streamed down her face. At that moment, an exquisitely embroidered handkerchief was offered to her. I just went in to handle some business for a while. How did you end up like this when I came out? Rose slowly raised her head, meeting Clyde's sympathetic gaze. You must go to the hospital now, and I happen to be going to work, so I can give you a ride. Thank you. Dr. Clyde. She followed Clyde into the car, unaware that a Bentley had turned back. Rex sat in the driver's seat, watching the woman get into another man's car, his gaze icy cold. Out of the hospital, Rose struggled to walk toward home. Along the way, withered yellow leaves fell. Clutching the medical report, Clyde's words echoed in her ears. Given your current condition, I recommend undergoing deep brain stimulation surgery as soon as possible. Otherwise, there's a risk of sudden shock at any time. The surgery carries risks and requires a direct family member to come to the hospital to sign the consent form. Direct family member. She thought of Tina, but didn't dare to break the news to her. 10 years ago, her father and brother passed away, and her mother suffered a severe emotional blow. From then on, his personality changed drastically, leading to how he is now. Now, she only had herself as family left. If something were to happen to her, what would she do? After thinking for a long time, she still decided to go find Rex. Although they had signed the divorce agreement, they hadn't officially gone through with the divorce yet. He was still her husband. As soon as she arrived outside the villa, she froze in place. From a distance, she saw Tina kneeling before Rex, pleading for something. She hurried over. Tina heard her voice, turned to look at her with bloodshot eyes. You wretched girl, how dare you come back? Rose stared at Rex's indifferent face, her hanging hand gradually clenching into a fist. How could you let Mom kneel before you? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Rex didn't answer her, instead casting a disdainful glance at Tina, who was kneeling on the ground. This is the fine daughter you've raised. Tina immediately stood up, walked over to Rose and pulled her down to her knees, but Rose remained motionless like a wooden stake. Kneel, I said kneel, do you hear me? Tina raised her hand and slapped her hard. Smack, smack, smack. I told you to kneel, kneel, kneel. Rose had blood at the corner of her mouth from being hit, yet she felt no pain. She closed her eyes briefly. Mom, let it go. Can we just go home? Tina grabbed her shoulders. Your home is at Darren's house, and your husband can only be Rex. Listen clearly, if you dare to divorce, I'll die right in front of you. Rose let out a silent sigh. It took a long while before he managed to utter a single okay. After Tina left, the villa was enveloped in a desolate chill. Rex walked toward Rose, his eyes brimming with smugness as he took in the crimson handprint on her face. I have countless ways to deal with you, you'd better behave. He was about to leave Rose when she suddenly grabbed the hem of his clothes. Rex, I'm sick and need someone to sign for my surgery. Rex froze, turned to look at Rose, his face expressionless. What illness? Parkinson's syndrome. Rose uttered the words slowly. Upon hearing about this illness, Rex snorted and said, why don't you just say you have cancer? Maybe then I'd pity you. Looking at the mockery on his face, Rose's hand froze, and the corner of his clothes slipped from her grasp. At this moment, she suddenly felt her husband was so unfamiliar. In her mind, the youthful, warm, and sunny Rex flashed by. She wanted to explain but found herself unable to utter a word. Rex looked at her with disgust. I really don't know how any man could be interested in someone as rigid as you. Rose felt a sharp pang in her heart. Ever since she contracted this illness, it had become increasingly difficult to control her facial expressions, making her appear unnaturally stiff. She walked silently toward the house. Sylvia is home. It's not appropriate for you to go in. From behind, Rex's voice sounded again. Rose's legs suddenly felt as heavy as if filled with lead. Rose had no time to say anything before being Rex chased out. The reason was simple, because today she nearly exposed Sylvia, because today she got into someone else's car. The late autumn wind blew cold against her face at night. She wanted to hug herself tightly, but her arms simply wouldn't lift. The body stiffened, stepping on the scattered fallen leaves, each step feeling so arduous. Unknowingly, she had arrived at the place where she was forbidden to return. Rose looked at the place where she had grown up, her eyes turning red. It had been 10 years since her father and brother passed away, and her mother had never allowed her to set foot here again. With a creak, the rusted iron gate was pulled open from the inside at that moment. Tina, upon seeing Rose, she went completely mad. Pushing her away, "Who said you could come back? Get out of here." Rose didn't want to provoke her and turned to leave, but her illness flared up, making it nearly impossible to move her feet. Tina suddenly widened her eyes, tightly grabbed her hand, and forcefully dragged her out. Soon, Rose knew where she was being taken. Rose looked at the lake not far away, her whole body trembling, her eyes filled with fear. Memories from 10 years ago came flooding back to her at this moment. The scene of her brother and father drowning kept replaying in her mind over and over. Her head felt like it was about to explode. "Mom, please don't do this, I'm begging you." But Tina paid no attention. Dragging her forward coldly, "Go atone for your sins in the lake." Rose shook her head uncontrollably, saying word by word, "I can agree to anything you ask, but not this one thing." However, Tina pulled out a fruit knife and pressed it directly against her own throat. "If you don't go, I'll die right here in front of you, leaving you without even a mother." The blade moved backward, instantly leaving a clear shallow mark. Rose watched her actions, wanting to cry but finding herself unable to shed any tears. Finally, she could only say, "All right, I'll go." Rose gazed at the dark lake water, struggling to move forward. With each step, her legs trembled uncontrollably. 10 years ago, her father, brother, and she were in the same car when an accident occurred unexpectedly. The car plunged into this lake. Her father and brother struggled to rescue her from the vehicle, but they themselves drowned in the depths of the lake. From then on, she feared water, especially this lake, when its waters rose past her knees, carrying a bone-chilling cold. Behind her, Tina's frantic voice urged, "Forward, keep going forward." The lake water rose past her chest, past her shoulders, past her lips. Rose stood in the lake, listening to Tina's hysterical laughter. Suddenly, she realized that she had lost her mother 10 years ago. 10 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, as the sky began to pale. Rose seemed to see her father and eldest brother walking toward her against the light. "Dad, brother, have you come to take me home?" As soon as she opened her mouth, lake water rushed in through her nose and mouth. Bang, a loud sound. Rose could no longer hold on and collapsed, splashing water everywhere. When she woke up again, the smell of disinfectant filled her nostrils. Rose listened as Tina questioned the doctor. "She's been married for 3 years, how could she still be a virgin?" After the doctor left, Tina approached her and gently touched her cheek. "Sweetheart, you're the most obedient, aren't you? Let's ask Rex to be a surrogate." "Okay." Rose's eyelashes trembled slightly, and a burning sensation rose in her throat. She forced herself to swallow back the metallic taste. At this moment, she no longer had a mother. "I'm sorry, this time I can't follow your heart. When the last leaf falls from the window, I shall go too," said Johnsy, and "Oh, Henry's the last leaf." Rose stared blankly out the window. From dawn to dusk to the silent depths of night, she got up from the hospital bed, barefoot, step by step, until she reached the rooftop of the hospital. There she stood at the edge, gazing into the pitch-black night sky. She stood there all night. The cold morning wind blew against her, followed by the first snow of early winter. Rose reached out her hand, watching the falling snowflakes land on her palm, slowly melting into water. "It's snowing, Dad, brother." Rose closed her eyes and stepped forward with her right foot. Just one more step, and she could leave this world. But at this moment, the scene of her father and brother desperately rescuing her and Miss Tina's heart-wrenching sobs suddenly swirled in her mind. A metallic taste rose in her throat. Rose couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. The cold wind rushed into her throat, unstoppable. When the hospital nurse found Rose, she had already passed out on the rooftop, her face, mouth, nose, and entire body covered in blood. The sound of the emergency device rang for who knows how long before it finally snatched her back from the clutches of death. Clyde gazed at her visibly thinning figure, his sword-like eyebrows tightly furrowed. "It only took 1 day to deteriorate to this extent. If you weren't in the hospital, you'd already be dead." Rose stiffly turned her gaze toward him, noticing his figure alternating between clarity and blurriness, as if seen through a haze. It was as if something was covering her eyes. She knew this was a sign of late-stage Parkinson's. Her eyes were failing too. Rose lowered her head, her eyes devoid of life. Do I not have a chance anymore? Clyde felt a pang in his chest, averted his gaze, and spoke indifferently, in a doctor's eyes, even with just one last breath left, there's still a chance. With that, he strode away. Rose knew he was trying to comfort her. Watching his retreating figure, she silently mouthed, "Dear Clyde. Thank you." In the hospital room, she was alone, and it felt too quiet. She picked up the remote control and turned on the TV. We congratulate the Darren family's newly appointed director, Sylvia, for winning the first prize at this year's LS International Jewelry Competition once again. Now, let's welcome Sylvia to the stage to receive her award. Rose's hand holding the remote trembled slightly. Her eyes grew misty as she followed the shifting images on screen, her gray pupils contracting. On the television, in the front row seats, Rex sat in a perfectly tailored suit, his handsome profile both familiar and strange. Rose looked at him, while his gaze followed Sylvia. The tenderness in that look was something Rose had never seen before. Rose leaned against the headboard, tears slipping from the corners of her eyes. In the end, she couldn't bring herself to calmly pick up the phone, so she sent a text message to Rex, on the other side. Rex stepped out of the venue and saw Rose's text message, his eyes instantly turning cold. The message contained only a few words: "Come to the Civil Affairs Bureau to process the divorce, after 3 years of marriage." This woman had never dared to mention divorce before. What kind of scheme is she trying to pull this time? Rex drove to the Civil Affairs Bureau quickly. The divorce processing office was nearly empty. He spotted Rose sitting on the bench at first glance, her figure gaunt, her face deathly pale. A long white coat hung loosely on her, looking oversized and out of place. When did she get so thin? Rex walked straight up to her and said coldly, "Your mother causing a scene at the old house wasn't enough. Now what are you trying to do?" Yesterday, Tina complained to Grandpa Darren, saying he hadn't touched Rose in 3 years. Rose barely registered his words in her daze. Lifting her head to look at his angry face, she simply said calmly, "Let's get a divorce." Rex looked at her lukewarm attitude, which completely killed his appetite, and the guilt in his heart vanished without a trace. "You think I don't dare?" With that, he grabbed Rose's hand and dragged her to the processing office. Divorce procedures are much simpler than marriage procedures. Soon, the divorce certificates were placed before the two of them. Rose took her own copy, then looked at Rex and said, "Congratulations, you're finally free," stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Sleet was blowing outside. Rose disliked the rain, yet the city of LS had an exceptionally long rainy season. Cemetery. Rose arrived completely drenched. She gazed at the tombstones of her father and brother, reaching out to gently brush away the fallen leaves on them. "Dad, brother, I've come to see you." Rose knelt before the tombstone, gazing at the photos of her father and brother, tears mingling with rain as they unconsciously streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, I broke my promise. I couldn't take care of myself, nor could I protect Mrs. Tina." She spoke while kowtowing heavily toward the tombstone, and when she raised her head again, her forehead was already broken, blood seeping out. "I'm sorry, from now on I won't be able to take care of Mrs. Tina anymore." Rose felt a lump in her throat, her voice hoarse. "But don't worry, before I leave, I'll make sure Miss Tina receives a substantial compensation that will allow her to live in wealth for the rest of her life." She clenched her palms tightly, her voice growing softer. "So, when I go down, can you promise not to be angry with me?" But the only response was the cold, mournful howl of the wind mixed with the sound of falling rain and snow. Like a prolonged lament that seemed endless, Rose stayed at the cemetery all day, and in the evening, she returned to the apartment she had bought years ago. She locked herself in the room, turned on the TV, and played on loop Sylvia's award-winning moment video. "We congratulate Darren Family Group's newly appointed director, Sylvia Madam, for winning the first prize at this year's LS International Jewelry Competition once again." Listening to the cheers in the video, Rose took out pen and paper, pressing her trembling hand to draw the diagram over and over again. From night to day, and from day to night, who knows how much time had passed. When she finally completed the drawing, she felt as if her last ounce of strength had drained away. Her phone buzzed with a new message at that moment. When she opened it, the words "wedding invitation" were prominently displayed. "Groom, Rex; bride, Sylvia." The person who sent me the invitation was none other than Rex. Rose felt the pent-up bitterness in her heart surge uncontrollably. A mouthful of blood splattered like plum blossoms onto her freshly completed work. Rose stared blankly at the television nearby, and when she saw Rex's face, a chill she had never felt before ran through her heart. "Rex, you're truly cruel." Rose swallowed a handful of brightly colored pills, then took out her phone and dialed Tina's number. "Go to the Intercontinental Hotel on the 15th of the 12th lunar month. I've prepared a gift for you. This time you'll definitely be satisfied." Without hearing Tina's abusive words, she hung up the phone. Rose closed her eyes. "Miss Tina, this is the last thing I can do for you." Finally, she carefully put away the contaminated drawing and then dialed the phone to Dr. Clyde. "Dr. Clyde, could you help me deliver a gift?" After receiving Clyde's affirmative response, Rose felt relieved. Then Rose staggered to her feet and rummaged through the room's drawer to retrieve the copyright registration she had previously prepared at her friend's place. This registration includes the copyrights to all her works. With great effort, she rummaged through those registration certificates and found Sylvia's award-winning stolen work, Butterfly Shadow. Then, carefully holding the certificate in her hands, her body completely gave out as she slowly slid down the wall to sit on the ground. Rose wanted to get up again but couldn't move at all, her breathing growing fainter and fainter. She knew she probably wouldn't make it. With her last ounce of strength, she clutched the copyright registration certificate for Shadow of the Butterfly and turned on the video recording on her phone. On the 15th day of the 12th lunar month, a heavy snowstorm raged. The streets and rooftops were blanketed in thick snow as a procession of luxurious wedding cars pulled into the Intercontinental Hotel. Soon, all the guests had arrived, Tina among them. Rex appeared before the crowd in a bespoke suit, hand in hand with Sylvia, instantly drawing countless gazes. His cool gaze swept the surroundings, but he didn't spot Rose, causing him to frown. He had personally sent the invitation. How dare she not come? The MC was about to announce the start of the wedding ceremony when the hotel doors swung open once more. Clyde appeared before the crowd, dressed in a black suit with a white rose pinned to his chest. Rex remembered this man. At the LS jewelry event, Rose had gotten into his car. That damn woman, how dare she bring another man to her own wedding? "Where is Rose?" Clyde concealed the sorrow in his eyes. "I'm here to deliver a congratulatory gift from her to you, Mr. Rex." With that, he slowly unwrapped the box he was holding. A painting of Rex and Sylvia standing hand in hand came into view, with a large pool of bloodstains on it. When everyone saw this painting, they were all shocked. At the same moment, the lights at the wedding venue suddenly went out. Amidst the chaos, the wedding projection screen suddenly turned on. The image showed a pale, frail woman clutching a certificate. Someone noticed the certificate in her hand and couldn't help but exclaim, "Isn't that the copyright certificate for Butterfly Shadow, the award-winning work by Ms. Sylvia from the other day? Why is the signature Rose?" Rex heard this, and his gaze turned icy cold. Then, he heard in the video, Rose say, "By the time you see this video, I will no longer be in this world." Rex stared blankly for a moment. In the video, Rose looked unusually pale as she continued, "First, congratulations to my ex-husband Rex on his happy new marriage." The words ex-husband were quickly noticed, causing a stir among the guests present, with reporters continuously recording the scene. So Mr. Rex was married before. His ex-wife turns out to be the former design director of the Darren family's conglomerate. What on earth is going on here? The crowd was in an uproar, yet Rex didn't have the video turned off. He watched as Rose in the video suddenly began coughing violently, with nosebleeds that wouldn't stop. She clumsily wiped at it while holding up the certificate in her arms to the camera. "Moreover, I want to tell everyone that the first prize of LS International Jewelry, Shadow of the Butterfly, is not Sylvia's work. It's one of my own creations, and I had already registered the copyright long ago." Rose, as soon as these words were spoken, Sylvia in her snow-white wedding dress paled and hurriedly said, "Turn off the video now." But her words were tantamount to admitting that she had stolen someone else's work. The video continued playing. "Mr. Rex, my ex-husband, once accused me of plagiarizing Master Carey's work. Here, I want to say, I did not. Mr. Rex burned all my original drafts, but in my private apartment, there are all the copyright registrations. Everyone is welcome to verify." Sylvia listened and couldn't help but worry, remembering how she had taken credit for all of Rose's works. She grabbed Rex's arm. "Rex, quickly have someone turn off the video." However, Rex stared blankly at the woman in the video who couldn't stop bleeding from her nose. Lost in thought for a long time, finally, I entrusted my agent, my mother Mrs. Tina, to sue Darren's family for compensation, as well as my rightful share of the 3 years of marital assets, all of which will go to Mrs. Tina. As the last words fell, Rose had no strength left and collapsed to the ground with a thud. The video paused at this moment. 3 a.m. on December 1st, 2020, Soon, reporters on the scene surrounded Rex and Sylvia in a circle, not far away. Tina listened to her daughter's final monologue, standing alone in the corner, her expression unreadable, whether joy or sorrow, at the Intercontinental Hotel Darren's family group president's wedding scene, which was soon exposed by reporters. The outside world was shocked, especially with most people in the design industry calling for a thorough investigation. Sylvia and Darren's family group. The night was silent and still. Rex stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his mind filled with Rose's recorded video. Sylvia hugged him from behind and whispered weakly, "Rex, what should we do? Rose is such a scheming woman. She actually dared to register the copyright behind your and the company's back." Rex frowned slightly with his sword-like brows but did not respond. Sylvia watched his ever-changing expression, unable to guess what he was thinking. Her pale hand climbed onto his chest, fingers lightly brushing with a bare leather touch. "Rex, I..." Before she could say it, Rex grabbed her hand, looked down at her, and said in a deep voice, "You're pregnant." Sylvia stiffened for a moment, then leaned against his chest. "It's been 4 months. The doctor said it's stable and there's no problem." After saying that, she reached out again to unbutton Rex's shirt. Rex looked down at her practiced movements, suddenly reminded of Rose. He abruptly tightened his grip on Sylvia's hand. "I want to ask you a question." "What?" Sylvia looked up at him in confusion. "Did you really wait for me for 3 years? Sylvia froze for a moment, then with tears in her eyes said, "Rex, don't you believe me? I gave you my first time. Isn't that proof enough?" Rex watched her like this, feeling only an overwhelming irritation. "I'm going out for a while." He was about to leave when suddenly Sylvia hugged him. "Are you planning to look for Rose? She ruined our wedding and threw everything into chaos. Please don't go after her, okay?" Rex frowned deeply but still replied patiently, "I won't go looking for her, don't worry." Sylvia slowly released Rex, and as she watched him leave, her eyes instantly turned cold. 4 months ago, she returned to the country and, after meeting Rex, devised a way for the two of them to end up in bed together. But after that, this man acted like a saint, not even laying a finger on me. Am I really that unattractive? Bar 1998, inside the presidential suite, Rex sat alone. In front of him, the video of Rose's final moments played on loop. "When you see this video, I will already be gone." Rex downed glass after glass of alcohol, yet his mind grew increasingly clear. "Rose, very clever. So you've quit being a designer and taken up acting now? Is that it? I have to say, your acting is way too exaggerated." Rex picked up his phone and dialed his assistant's number. Any leads on her whereabouts? The assistant on the other end of the line hemmed and hawed. Rex grew impatient. "What the hell is going on, Mr. Rex?" By the time we arrived at Rose's private apartment, her remains had already been sent for cremation. Rex felt something snap in his mind. "What did you say, Mr. Rex? You'd better come see this for yourself." The assistant gazed at the scene inside the private apartment, feeling a chill run down his spine. Rex cursed under his breath and hung up the phone immediately. That woman just wanted to go find her herself. What right did he have to go? He drank a few more glasses of wine and was about to turn off the video when he glanced at the screen again. He then saw Rose lying on the ground, only to wake up an hour later. He quickly pressed fast forward. In the video, it seemed like a day had passed. Rose woke up again but could only stare stiffly around. She couldn't move, her fingers were rigid, and she couldn't speak. Rex watched this scene, his heart tightening. He suddenly remembered that a few days ago, Rose said she needed someone to sign for her surgery. But what kind of surgery? He couldn't remember. Rex picked up his coat, got straight into the car, and told the driver to head to Rose's private apartment. On the way, he called his assistant. "Protect her body. No one is to arrange for cremation until I get there." After hanging up, he told the driver to go as fast as possible. On the road, snow was falling outside, but Rex felt unusually hot. For the first time, he felt that a journey could be so long. How much longer? 5 minutes. Along the way, the driver kept wiping sweat too. It was only a 30-minute journey, yet Rex had already asked him 4 or 5 times. Finally, they arrived. Rex immediately opened the car door and rushed towards Rose's private apartment. The surroundings were silent except for the sound of the wind. The assistant stood at the door, looking at Rex with an apologetic expression. "What's going on?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Rex. Rose's body has already been cremated." Rex's body swayed slightly before he quickly regained his composure. "Who did this?" "Tina. Tina hasn't been here. It was arranged by Rose's attending physician before her death. That doctor's name is Clyde." Rex's hand hanging by his side unconsciously tightened, his knuckles turning white. Soon, he arrived at Rose's apartment, pushed the door open, and the scene inside stabbed at his eyes. The apartment was almost covered in bloodstains. Rex stared in disbelief at the scene, taking a long moment to regain his composure before asking his assistant beside him, "What happened here?" According to Rose's attending physician, it was due to her illness flaring up, causing muscle rigidity that left her unable to move, and all the electronic devices had run out of power. She must have been trying to call for help, but she didn't have the strength, crawling everywhere, so the whole room was covered in blood. The assistant spoke. Unable to help feeling sorry for Rose, Rose was once a talented woman of her generation, said to have been the top liberal arts student in the city, but because her family had no money, she ultimately couldn't continue her education. In the end, Tina found a way to place her in Darren's household. Although the two slept together at the time, Mr. Rex never once touched Rose. Thinking of this, the assistant couldn't help but feel sorry for Rose. Rex wanted to go in, but couldn't take a single step forward. "What illness does she have?" "It seems to be Parkinson's syndrome." The assistant scratched his head. "It's typically an illness that affects the elderly. I don't know how Rose could have." Rex only then remembered upon hearing this. "Arrange for me to meet with her attending physician." After saying that, he walked into the room. The assistant had no choice but to follow along reluctantly. "You go back. I'll be fine here alone," Rex said. The assistant immediately left upon hearing this. In the room, only Rex remained alone. He walked through the narrow space of the one-bedroom apartment, looking at the bloodstains covering the room, and suddenly felt a heavy weight in his heart. He sat in front of a wooden table and pulled open a half-opened drawer. Inside lay a red marriage certificate and a green divorce certificate. Rex opened the two certificates, noticing how Rose on the marriage license looked youthful and charming, while in the divorce certificate, her eyes were hollow, devoid of any trace of vitality. For the past 3 years, this was the first time he truly looked at Rose, yet it was only through a photograph. Rose was born in 1997 and is only 23 years old now. How could she die? Rex leaned back in the chair. And as soon as he closed his eyes, the image of Rose questioning him appeared before him. The next day, back at Darren's house, he felt completely exhausted. Opening the door, the home's decor was completely refreshed, with quite a few servants present. "Rex, you're back. What do you think of my new decorations?" "The villa is too big, so I hired 3 servants." Sylvia saw him return and walked towards him with a smile. Rex looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings and finally spoke after a long pause. "As long as you like it." With that, he walked toward the study, still holding the 2 marriage and divorce certificates in his hand. Sylvia watched his strange behavior and couldn't help but follow him. She then saw Rex remove the photos from the marriage and divorce certificates, his gaze fixed on them. Sylvia's gaze grew increasingly icy. "Rex, I need to talk to you about something." Rex snapped back to reality upon hearing her voice and placed the photo into the drawer. "What is it?" "This morning, Rose's mother came over. She brought a lawyer to sue us." Rex remained calm upon hearing this. "I understand. I'll take care of this matter." Sylvia did not leave. She walked to Rex's side and reached out to hold his hand. "Rex, do you feel guilty about Rose?" Rex gently pulled her hand away and looked at her. "Isn't it? Man's fate is as uncertain as the weather. Rose's illness and death had nothing to do with you. Her mother even took the opportunity to extort us. You should countersue Tina and have her imprisoned," Sylvia said. Rex narrowed his eyes slightly. "Is that what you think?" Sylvia met his deep gaze and was momentarily speechless. "Tina's matter will be handled by me. Don't interfere. You're pregnant, so you should rest well," Rex added. Sylvia suddenly felt that this calm Rex was somewhat frightening. After Sylvia left, Rex looked at their wedding photo on the desk. He and Sylvia grew up together as childhood sweethearts, attending the same schools from elementary through university, being both lovers and friends. It could be said they shared everything and understood each other exceptionally well. But ever since she went abroad 3 years ago and returned, he suddenly felt he couldn't see through her anymore. Similarly, Sylvia no longer understood him either. Rex closed his eyes briefly, and once again, the image of Rose appeared in his mind. When he opened his eyes again, he swept everything off the table in a fit of rage. He couldn't understand why this woman kept haunting his thoughts relentlessly. He couldn't help but pick up his phone and dial that number he used to loathe so much, yet all he heard was the cold, automated female voice. "The number you have dialed is currently switched off. Please try again later." Rex hurled his phone straight at the door, his heart pounding violently. The next day, City Hospital, Neurology Department. Rex took Rose's medical report, flipped through a couple of pages casually, then looked at Clyde. "Where is she?" Clyde, looking at his perfunctory attitude, suddenly felt it wasn't worth it for Rose. Mr. Rex's Mrs. Rose's husband doesn't even know where she is. How would I know? Rex's eyes turned cold instantly as he stood up and grabbed Clyde by the collar. I advise you to spill everything you know. Or I have plenty of ways to make your life miserable. She's dead. Where else could she be? Naturally, she has returned to her roots. Clyde looked calmly at Rex and continued. She only had you and Tina as family, yet neither of you truly cared for her. When she needed surgery, there wasn't even anyone to sign the consent form. Now that she's dead, her mother Mrs. Tina has taken all her copyright certificates to the law firm, while you, as her husband, have already moved on with someone new. As the last word left his lips, Rex swung his fist at Clyde, knocking him to the ground in one blow. Rex glanced at Clyde on the ground and adjusted his tie. My affairs with Rose are none of your business, an outsider. Or are you implying you've already been involved with Rose? Clyde only pitied the woman. Hearing Rex's slander, he got up from the ground and threw a punch at him. Rex dodged to the side, growing even more convinced of his suspicions. Another punch was thrown at Clyde. And soon both of them bore marks of the fight on their faces. Tell Rose to come out and apologize to me immediately, and I might consider forgiving her for ruining my wedding. Otherwise, I'll send her mother to jail. After saying that, Rex directly threw the stack of medical reports onto the floor. He refused to believe Rose had just died as the days passed by in a blur. Rose seemed to have completely vanished into thin air. No matter Rex tried, he couldn't track her down. Meanwhile, Tina's lawsuit was accepted by the court, and soon the media began reporting on this high-profile divorce and the plagiarism scandal. Sylvia naturally became the center of attention. As the other woman who stole the original wife's work, she faced relentless online criticism. Can't you get these announcements taken down? Are you all idiots? She yelled at her subordinates. The company assistant who already disliked her became furious upon hearing her insults. Ms. Sylvia, did you never consider this day would come when you stole Ms. Rose's work? Sylvia recognized this woman. She was the one who had tipped off Rose back then. Immediately, Sylvia raised her hand and slapped the woman across the face. Jason's eyes turned red with anger, and he immediately submitted his resignation. At that moment, the secretary hurried over, whispered something into Sylvia's ear, and she quickly walked to the meeting room. Darren's Family Corporation has seen its stock price plummet continuously due to Rose's incident. At the executive meeting, the manufacturer of Butterfly Shadow has shut down, and many customers are returning their purchases. Our losses this time are too great, Mr. Rex. I think it's best to have Ms. Sylvia apologize. Exactly. Our company should personally apologize to Rose. After all, Rose has passed away, and her works belong to the company. It's only natural that we revert the credits. Rex was about to speak when the door was pushed open from outside. Everyone turned to look at the door, where Sylvia stood. Why should we apologize to Rose? She's already dead. How can some certificates overturn anything? A shareholder couldn't help but interject. But this is extremely damaging to our company's reputation. Sylvia walked over to Rex and said, Rex, I really need those works. If I admit to taking Rose's pieces, my career will be ruined. Rex looked at her coquettish behavior and felt nothing but exhaustion. The meeting is adjourned. Sylvia smirked at the sight. Rex, you're so good to me. Rex rubbed his temples. Don't come to the conference room so casually in the future. With that, he stood up and walked out. Outside the company, heavy snow was falling. Rex just stood there, unable to resist calling Rose again. When the call went to voicemail, he muttered to himself, Rose, it's snowing. Don't you love snow? I'll give you one last chance. Show up now, or else. He didn't finish the sentence, feeling a dull ache in his chest. In the evening, returning to the villa, Rex suddenly noticed someone sitting on the sofa. In a momentary daze, he was about to call out Rose when he saw the woman stand up. Sir, you're back. I'll prepare dinner right away, said the housekeeper. Rex hated having strangers living in the house and using the household items the most. His sword-like eyebrows furrowed tightly. None of you need to come tomorrow. The household servants stood frozen in place. One by one, Sylvia came downstairs and asked, What's wrong? Rex looked up at her and said, I had my assistant buy a new villa with a better environment than here. You'll move there tonight. Sylvia was stunned for a moment, then walked down as if realizing something. Rex, is it because Rose lived here that you don't want me to stay? Afraid it might bring back painful memories. There were never any feelings between me and her, Rex added before leaving. Tonight, you and these people will move there. Sylvia watched his desolate figure recede, her gaze growing increasingly cold. Rose, how dare a dead woman compete with me? Afraid of annoying Rex, she suppressed her emotions and moved out of the villa. Late at night, Rex lay on the vast bed. Unable to sleep no matter how hard he tried, he went to the studio, which was now in complete disarray. He had destroyed it with his own hands. He vaguely remembered the woman sobbing uncontrollably as she watched the studio being ruined, and how overjoyed she had been when she first learned he had a studio. Happiness and sorrow seemed to revolve around this studio. Just then, a phone call came through, Rex's eyes flickering with a glimmer of hope, only to dim again when he saw the caller ID. "What's the matter? Rose is dead, Rex. You're the only family I have left. If you agree to let me stay at Darren's house, I won't press charges." On the phone, Tina's voice was faint and barely audible. Rex responded coldly into the phone. "Your daughter caused the company's stock to plummet and damaged its reputation. And you still want to stay at Darren's house? Rex, Rose." Rex didn't wait to hear the rest and directly hung up the phone, then called his assistant, Sue Tina. The next day, Darren's family group countersued Tina, and the news quickly topped the trending searches. Rex stared at that trending topic, lost in thought for a long time. He didn't believe Rose would stay hidden forever. Online discussions were buzzing, and by afternoon, the assistant finally arrived at Rex's office. "President." Tina jumped into the river. Rex's pupils constricted sharply. "What?" Fortunately, she was rescued in time, but she seems to have some mental issues. After speaking, the assistant showed Rex the latest trending topic on the phone. It read, "Darren's family group president drove his ex-wife to death, and now he's forcing his mother-in-law to jump into the river." Rex frowned deeply and turned off the phone. Still no news about Rose. The assistant couldn't help but speak up. "The people we sent to follow Clyde yesterday said he went to a cemetery, where it seems someone is buried who..." Before he could finish speaking, Rex impatiently cut him off. "I don't believe she's dead. Yes, check all her communication addresses and search them one by one." Rex, after giving the order, he stood up and left. For some reason, he felt unusually exhausted these days. The snow is falling heavily outside. Rex picked up the phone and called his bodyguard, learning that Clyde had gone to the cemetery yesterday, then drove there immediately. The cemetery, a vast expanse of white. Rex stepped out of the car holding an umbrella and quickly arrived at the spot the bodyguard had mentioned. He gazed at the familiar face in the photo on the tombstone, feeling a sudden tightness in his chest as if he couldn't breathe. "Rose, you were lying to me, weren't you?" He reached out and touched the photo on the tombstone. Rose, where she smiled like a flower, showing no trace of sorrow. Rex swayed slightly, forcing himself to stand firm. At that moment, the sound of a car suddenly came from behind, and a woman got out of the vehicle, rushing over in a hurry. Rex heard a sound and thought it was Rose. He turned his head, but when he saw who it was, his gaze immediately dimmed. "Rex, why are you here? I've been looking for you everywhere." "About what happened online?" Sylvia's words were cut off as Rex interrupted her. "How did you know I was here?" Sylvia froze momentarily, unable to respond, when Rex spoke with a chilling gaze. "Did you have someone follow me?" "Rex, I was worried about you, that's why I did this." After speaking, she glanced at Rose's tombstone, her eyes misting with tears. "So you did have feelings for her. I heard you sent people everywhere to look for her." Rex took a deep look at Sylvia, suddenly too lazy to explain, and walked forward. He looked for Rose without drawing attention, with only his bodyguards and assistants knowing about it. "How did Sylvia hear of it, Rex?" Sylvia suddenly called out to him, hugging him from behind. "Do you still love me? Why haven't I felt it since I came back? Have you already fallen for Rose?" Rex stiffened, placing his hand over Sylvia's. "Sylvia, I promised to take care of you and the child, and I'll keep my word. You don't need to worry." "I do worry." Sylvia clung tightly to Rex. "Did you marry me for the child or for me?" Rex hated being pressured the most. "I married you because of the child in your belly. Just as I gave Rose's work to you." With that, he pulled away Sylvia's hand. "Aren't you clearer about this matter than I am?" Sylvia froze in place, staring at Rex in disbelief. Rex said nothing more and walked straight away, returned to the villa. Rex gazed at the empty, pitch-black room and suddenly felt a lump in his throat. He walked in stiffly, step by step, when suddenly his vision blurred, and he saw Rose approaching him with a painting in her hands. "Rex, do you think my painting looks good? I want to enter the company's competition, can I?" Rex felt his eyes redden involuntarily. Just as he reached out to grab Rose, she shifted to another spot and asked him bitterly, "Rex, I don't want money, I want a child." After being married for 3 years, he never once touched Rose. So how could there be a child? "As long as you come back, I can agree to anything," he suddenly spoke up, but then Rose suddenly vanished from his sight again. When she reappeared, she couldn't stop her nose from bleeding as she glared at him with resentment. "Mr. Rex, you're free now, Rose." Rex lunged at her suddenly, Collapsing onto the sofa, he closed his eyes, suddenly feeling a sharp pain in his head. Reaching out to touch, it was burning hot. He murmured to himself, "Rose, my head hurts, it hurts so much." The empty villa offered not a single response. Rex drifted in and out of sleep until he woke up the next afternoon, his stomach and head aching, his limbs weak as he called his assistant. The assistant arrived with a private doctor, who administered N4 to alleviate his pain. "How's Tina?" Completely out of control, the assistant replied helplessly, "Actually, Tina is quite pitiful. Not only did her husband and son die in an accident, but her daughter also fell seriously ill and passed away at a young age. To make matters worse, her son-in-law is suing her. Arrange the best hospital room for her, and also invite specialists to examine her," Rex said. The assistant froze for a moment, unable to believe it, and only after a long pause did they snap back to reality and nod. After the assistant left, Rex recalled the words he had spoken the previous night, his sharp brows furrowing tightly. Afternoon, feeling slightly better. He went to work when his friend Cliff came over. "Rex, since your significant other is no longer around, want to go to a bar?" Rex paused his typing, suddenly remembering how Rose used to tell him to come home early and drink less. He impatiently said, "Not going." Cliff heard this and leaned in. "What? Even your current wife won't let you stay out late? Then why did you get married? Being single was so much better." Rex felt somewhat uncomfortable hearing him refer to Sylvia as wife. "Sylvia and I don't live together now." Cliff widened his eyes in disbelief and stared at him. "Then why did you marry her?" "She's carrying my child, and my child can't grow up without a father," Rex said calmly. "So, it's not because you love her." Cliff could hardly believe it. Rose's video had also come to his attention. Rex had gone to Sylvia by any means necessary. Rex had no time for small talk. "Get out. I have an online meeting to attend." "Got it. Work is your real wife." Cliff shook his head and left, completely baffled by Rex's attitude. Once outside, he couldn't help but ask Rex's secretary, "Has your Mr. Rex been staying at the company every day lately? Didn't he go see Sylvia?" To be honest, compared to Sylvia, he prefers Rose, not for any other reason, but because over these 3 years, Rose's dedication to Rex has been evident to him. He thought, if someone could treat him this well, he would surely change his promiscuous ways and devote himself wholeheartedly to that person. The secretary was very familiar with Cliff and quietly mentioned Rex's recent frantic search for Rose. "Mr. Cliff, you mustn't tell anyone about this. The president doesn't want rumors spreading." Cliff choked up, his gaze deep as he looked at Rex's tightly closed office door. Some people don't realize they're in love until it's too late, only regretting after losing it. For days, Rex hadn't gone anywhere except between the company and the home he shared with Rose. He felt as if he'd fallen ill. Anything related to Rose would inexplicably bring that woman to mind. Sometimes it was a painting, other times a song Rose used to hum occasionally. He had his assistant remove everything connected to Rose from the villa and office, yet she kept circling in his thoughts. Rex never drank except for social occasions. That night, he opened the wine hidden deep in the cellar alone, drinking until he collapsed in a drunken stupor. Unsure of how much he had consumed, Rose's voice echoed in his ears once more. "Mr. Rex, congratulations, you're free." He stared blankly at the ceiling, his throat slightly dry. "I'm not free at all now, Rose. You've won." 1 month later, Rex was processing documents when his assistant hurried over. "Mr. Rex, our people spotted someone who looks just like Tina while taking care of Rose." Rex paused his pen and immediately stood up. "Where is she now?" The trailing bodyguards saw her enter Maplewood residential area. Rex immediately dropped his work upon hearing this, quickly left the company, and drove straight to Maple Forest residential area. Following the location provided by the bodyguard, he drove into the neighborhood. As he got closer to the woman's location, his heart couldn't help but tighten. Rex got out of the car and soon spotted that familiar figure. His eyes suddenly reddened at the corners. "Rose, you really lied to me." At this moment, Rose was feeding the stray cats in the neighborhood. When she finished and turned around, she began walking toward Rex. Rex's hanging hand trembled slightly as he watched her approach, his eyes filled with complexity. "Lynn." Before he could finish speaking, he saw Rose walk past him indifferently, her gaze as if she didn't recognize him at all. Rex stood frozen in place, his eyes filled with disbelief. On the drive over, he had imagined many scenarios of meeting Rose, but he never expected it to be like this. He turned to look at Rose's retreating figure and quickly caught up with her. "Rose." Rose heard someone call her name and turned to look at Rex. "Sir, who are you?" Rex saw the confusion in her eyes but refused to believe it. He grabbed her hand and said, Faking your death wasn't enough, now you're pretending to have amnesia. Come home with me. Rose hadn't even processed what was happening before she was Rex dragged toward his car. She turned pale with fright. What are you doing? Let me go. But Rex paid no attention. You'll find out when we get back. Rose was nearly forced into the car when she desperately struggled and screamed at the crowd. Help, there's a kidnapper. Rex was stunned for a moment, frowning. He noticed the crowd around him staring in his direction. Don't shout. He was about to cover Rose's mouth when suddenly he felt a sharp electric shock at his waist, the pain sending him collapsing back into the car seat. As he released his grip, he saw Rose holding an anti-wolf electric shock baton in her other hand. Grimacing in pain, he reached for her again, only to see her retreat several steps, stiff fingers fumbling to dial the emergency number, yet his hand seemed beyond control. Trembling uncontrollably, fortunately, the people around her called the police for help. Soon, the police arrived at Maple Grove Community. Rex initially wanted to leave, but was surrounded by the outraged crowd and couldn't escape. Rose stood in the crowd, looking at him fearfully, her gaze as if she were staring at a madman. She is my wife. I'm here to take her home. Rex stubbornly reached out to her again, unable to believe Rose would truly be so heartless as to send him to the police station. Come on, let's stop this nonsense. Okay, be good. But then, he heard Rose tell the police, I don't know him at all. He started touching me as soon as he saw me and even tried to force me into his car. Rex was finally taken away in a police car. Before leaving, he looked at Rose with disbelief, noticing her flustered expression as if she truly didn't recognize him. At that moment, he felt a faint ache in his heart. Could it really be that he had mistaken her for someone else? After his assistant bailed him out, he had someone purchase Rose's neighboring house. The winter sun feels very comforting. Rose lay on the recliner on the balcony, basking in the sunlight. With a painting that had been worked on for who knows how long in front of her, she is now in the late stages of Parkinson's disease, and not long ago, she nearly died in her apartment due to its complications. It was only with great difficulty that Dr. Clyde managed to pull her back from the brink of death. Now, her body is very fragile, barely sustained by medication. Yesterday, she encountered Rex, and for the first time, she realized what it feels like to pretend not to know someone she once loved. It was as if thousands of ants were gnawing at her heart, agonizing yet inexpressible. When her condition improved slightly, she picked up the pen with trembling hands and continued drawing. The gentle breeze brushed against her cheeks, but she barely felt it. On the other side, Rex saw the woman drawing on the balcony next door after he moved in. He never knew Rose could paint so beautifully. In the past, he hated those paints the most, so he arranged Rose's studio in a dark corner. Naturally unaware of how those stunning works were created, bang, with a loud noise, Rose had a seizure, fell to the ground, and her whole body was trembling. Rex was about to step forward when he saw a man hurriedly coming out of Rose's room. It was Clyde. Clyde saw Rose lying on the ground and hurried to help her up, his eyes filled with concern. Are you okay? Rose gasped heavily, her vision of him slightly blurred. I'm fine, don't worry. Clyde picked him up and carried him into the room. Rex watched the scene, veins throbbing at his temples. At the same time, his phone rang. Answering it, he heard Sylvia's voice. Rex, I miss you so much. Can you accompany me to my prenatal checkup today? Rex's eyes darkened slightly as he hesitated, gazing at Rose's room for a long moment before finally replying, okay. After hanging up the phone, Sylvia's expression turned rather grim. She asked her assistant, Rex really met Rose? The assistant nodded. Mr. Rex seems to have specifically moved next to where Rose lives. Sylvia immediately threw her phone to the ground upon hearing this, trembling with rage. That bitch dares to steal my man. Hospital. The doctor performed Sylvia a basic checkup, and the child is very healthy. Sylvia happily linked arms with Rex and said, Rex, I heard that Rose isn't dead. Rex replied calmly, his mind involuntarily recalling the scene of Rose being carried into the room by Clyde. Had the two of them already? Sylvia, noticing his distraction, frowned slightly in displeasure. Rex, if you love Rose, I won't stop you from being together. The baby and I will manage on our own. Rex snapped back to reality. Don't overthink it. I promised to treat you and the child well. And I meant it. Sylvia waited for him for 3 years and is now carrying his child. He would never let either of them down. As for Rose, he simply dislikes being played for a fool. In the evening, after seeing Sylvia to her villa, Rex made an excuse and left. He had intended to return to his own place, but unconsciously drove to Maple Grove Community. Rex was about to get out of the car when he saw Clyde hurrying away late at night. His eyes turned cold in an instant as he went straight to Rose's room and knocked on the door. the door was pulled open, revealing the woman in her pajamas. "Dear Clyde, why are you back again?" Rose hadn't even finished speaking when Rex pinned her in his arms and locked the door behind them. In the dim light, Rose couldn't see clearly who was in front of her, but she knew it wasn't Clyde. She gasped for breath, her stiff hand reaching for her phone to call the police. But the man gave her no chance at all. "Rose, look at me carefully. Who am I?" The man's familiar, irate voice echoed in her ears. Rose stared in shock, unable to believe her eyes at Rex. Her vision blurred slightly, but she could still see him clearly. "Get out. No more pretending." Rex looked down at her, gripping her chin to force her to meet his gaze. "How long have you and Clyde been together? You actually teamed up with him to deceive me. Do you think I'm stupid?" His hand tightened. Rose winced in pain, her body seemingly out of control as she began to collapse. You. She wanted to call for help, but couldn't utter a complete sentence. Rex felt a pang in his chest at the sight. He picked her up and gently placed her on the sofa. "What's wrong? Is your illness acting up again?" Rose stood frozen, unable to speak as she stared at Rex, momentarily dazed by his tense expression. Would he also care about her? Rex searched the room for medicine, and after finding it, poured water for Rose and brought it to her lips. Rose gradually recovered after taking the medicine, yet her body remained immobile, her fingers grotesquely curled. "Please leave, or I'll call the police," she said weakly. Rex put the medicine bottle back in its place. His tall, straight figure seemed out of place in this cramped rental room. "Is this the kind of place you live in with that doctor?" He didn't leave. Rose was stunned for a moment, then smiled self-deprecatingly. "Dr. Clyde may not be as wealthy as Mr. Rex, but he treats me well, and that's enough." A single sentence once again ignited Rex's anger. Suppressing the fire in his heart, he asked, "How long has it been?" Rose looked up, her pale face twisting into a bitter smile. "Does it matter? Was it when we were still married?" Rex pressed aggressively. Rose felt as if the nerves in her brain had snapped instantly. If she weren't having an episode right now, she would have really wanted to slap Rex across the face. She gripped the sofa tightly and sneered in a low voice. "Only those who are filthy themselves would suspect others of being dirty." Her voice was so soft that Rex could barely hear what she was saying. Rex impatiently tugged at his collar. "I'll restore your copyright to your work. Don't act like I owe you so much. Our marriage was entirely your mother's doing in the first place." Before he could finish, Rose suddenly looked up, her eyes reddening. "Then why did you agree to it? Would even the esteemed Mr. Rex be swayed by public opinion?" Rose once also thought Rex married her because he cared about the media, but later she gradually came to understand that Rex had means to never fear such things. Rex was momentarily speechless. Initially, when he discovered Rose lying beside him, he was furious, but upon seeing Rose's face, which bore some resemblance to Sylvia's, he hesitated. He knew he hadn't touched Rose at the time, yet he still married her. Rose stood up shakily. "You should leave. I need to rest. I know you married me because of Sylvia. I know everything." She returned to the bedroom and lay quietly on the bed. The living room light soon went out, and she thought Rex must have left. Rose tightened her grip on the blanket, feeling an emptiness inside that seemed like it would never be filled. She remembered the first time she met Sylvia, seeing the same features as her own, and she knew she had always been Rex's substitute. He married her because of the woman he truly loved, and that woman wasn't her. Falling ill, Rose slept lightly. She woke up very early, just as dawn was breaking, and the moment she stepped out of the bedroom, she spotted Rex sleeping on the sofa. The man was tall and well-built, his long legs awkwardly cramped on the narrow sofa that offered no space for them. Rose hadn't expected him to spend the entire night on the sofa. She gazed deeply at his familiar features, but in the end, chose not to wake him. The room was too narrow, and she inevitably had to pass by Rex when going to wash up. Before she could take a few steps, the man suddenly grabbed her hand. "Awake," Rex murmured with sleep still thick in his voice. Rose tried to pull her hand away. Rex deliberately tightened his grip. "You know you're no match for me, so don't waste your energy." With that, he gave a strong pull. Rose lost control and fell towards him. Rex held her tightly in his arms, and the faint fragrance from her hair brought him an unexpected sense of peace. These days, he hadn't slept well at all, except for last night when he stayed here and finally got some rest. "Rex, let me go." Rose couldn't help but frown. Rex rarely had intimate contact with her, let alone sleeping together on the sofa like this. She left in a fluster. "Don't talk, I'm very tired." Rex pulled her closer. The woman's body was soft. For the first time, he discovered how comfortable it was to hold her, making him completely relaxed. Rose struggled but couldn't break free, so she stopped resisting and spoke coldly. "Does Sylvia know you're treating me like this?" Rex furrowed his sharp brows slightly. His arms stiffening a little as he held her. After a long while, he slowly released Rose and stood up. I'm going to work. I'll have someone bring breakfast over. After speaking, he glanced at Rose a few more times before leaving. On the way to the office, Rex called Cliff. Cliff arrived to find the CEO's office stocked with numerous bottles of alcohol, while Rex had already finished one bottle, appearing thoroughly dejected. I thought you never drank. Cliff looked puzzled. Rex filled his glass. No more talking, drink with me. Cliff took the wine, and after several rounds of drinking, he finally learned that Rose was not dead. So you're not going to tell me you regret it. Some things have no turning back. Rex drank another cup of wine but didn't feel the slightest bit drunk. Cliff sighed deeply. I don't understand you. Since you fell for Rose, why did you keep lingering with Sylvia? She never loved you at all. You don't know that when she went abroad. Cliff suddenly stopped mid-sentence and gulped down a mouthful of alcohol. Rex grabbed his collar. Sylvia, what happened after she went abroad? Cliff met his icy gaze, hesitated for a long moment, then finally spoke. I only recently found out from a friend. Shortly after going abroad, she got involved with a rich second-generation heir. This time she returned because he rejected her and married someone else. Bang! Rex's glass fell to the ground. His face was pale, revealing no emotion. Cliff hurried to console him. Everyone has an ex, don't you have Rose? But she shouldn't have lied to me. Evening, Maple Forest Community. Rose went for a walk in the garden. Clyde accompanied her by her side. Have the symptoms eased recently? Rose nodded. I really appreciate you being here with me all this time. No need to be so formal with me, Clyde said, taking out an exquisite box from his coat pocket and handing it to Rose, celebrating your improved condition. Rose looked at the exquisite box in his hand, opening it to reveal a beautiful Longxing pendant inside. She knew this pendant was designed by the famous international designer Catherine and was extremely valuable. I can't accept this. Although she didn't understand how Clyde could afford such an expensive gift, accepting it would mean owing him even more. There's something I've never told you, and this is also an apology gift. You must accept it. Clyde said as he already took off the pendant and reached out to place it around Rose's neck. Rose looked at him puzzled. What is it? Clyde reached out and held her in his arms, his voice low. Actually, I'm Sylvia's uncle. Rose was suddenly embraced by him, her hanging hands unsure where to place themselves. From the moment Clyde participated in the LS jewelry competition, she knew he was extraordinary, but she never expected him to have such a relationship with Sylvia. Then why doesn't Sylvia recognize you? Clyde looked downcast. Because I'm just the Porter family's illegitimate child. Rose felt her heart tighten. You didn't have to tell me about this kind of thing. After speaking, she was about to break free from his embrace, but the man held her even tighter. Of course I needed to say it, because I want to take you to meet my parents. Rose was completely stunned. The man's tall frame leaned against her, as if afraid she might refuse. I know this is very sudden. I wanted to find the right moment to say it, but I'm afraid if I wait any longer, the opportunity might be gone. Clyde learned from the bodyguard yesterday that Rex went to Rose's place and even stayed there overnight. Dear Clyde, you don't have to make a decision now. I just wanted to tell you how I feel. Clyde slowly released her from his embrace, lowering his head as his lips lightly brushed Rose's forehead. Did I scare you? Rose lowered her head. Momentarily at a loss for words, even after being taken home, she remained in a daze. Since her brother and father left, few people had genuinely cared for her. For the past few months, it had been Clyde who looked after her, almost like an older brother. The doorbell rang. Rose thought Clyde had returned, so she got up to answer the door. When the door opened, she saw Sylvia standing there with a swollen belly. Mrs. Rose, would you mind if I come in to talk? We'll talk outside, Rose said coldly. Sylvia slightly raised her eyebrows. Then I'll get straight to the point. Please stay away from my husband. After speaking, she glanced around and took out a bank card, handing it to Rose. The money in here is enough for you to buy a house somewhere else. Rose merely looked at the bank card with indifference and smirked. Is there 100 million in here? Sylvia was stunned. Are you kidding me? Rex owes me over 500 million from our marital assets. What's this petty cash of yours? Rose turned away disdainfully. Sylvia hadn't expected Rex to give Rose so much money. Watching Rose about to close the door, she grabbed her wrist. Are you still involved with Rex? Let go. Rose was about to shake off Sylvia's hand. Meanwhile, Sylvia's gaze turned icy as she looked into her eyes, then let herself fall backward along with her hand. Bang! Rose watched as she tumbled down the stairs, her body covered in blood. With trembling hands, she quickly dialed for an ambulance. Hospital. Outside the operating room, Rex hurried over and saw Rose sitting on a chair in the hallway, her hands covered in blood, His heart skipped a beat as he rushed forward, grabbing her hand tightly. "Why are you here? What happened to your hands? Whose blood is this?" Nearby, Sylvia's mom spotted Rex and cried out, "It's her, she's the one who pushed Sylvia down the stairs and caused Sylvia to miscarry." Rose sat in the hallway, her hands placed in front of her, trembling uncontrollably. She pressed her hands down forcefully, looked up at Rex and said, "I didn't." As soon as she finished speaking, Sylvia's mom charged toward her, raising her hand and delivering a sharp slap across her face. "You ill-mannered woman. Didn't your mother teach you not to wreck other people's families? I've heard from Sylvia that you've already divorced Rex, yet you're still luring him back." Rose flushed crimson, her eyes wide as she stared at her. Who was the one who ruined someone else's relationship first? Sylvia's mom saw her glaring and raised her hand to deliver another slap. But before it could land, Rex grabbed it. "Enough, Rex, how can you still defend someone like this? Sylvia's child was lost because of her." Rex impatiently furrowed his brows, glanced again at Rose, and slowly said, "I'll get to the bottom of this." "Good, once you've figured it out, make sure to send her to the police station," Sylvia's mom said viciously, then hurried over anxiously as the operating room lights dimmed. Rex also followed forward. Rose sat desolately in the corridor, watching their retreating figures, and suddenly felt a pang of envy for Sylvia. She envied Sylvia for having a mother who always stood in front of her for everything. She raised her hand and lightly touched her own face, yet felt no pain. "If Mrs. Tina knew she was being hit by others, would she still stand by my side?" Her eyes gradually welled up with tears as a tall figure stopped in front of her. Rose thought Rex had returned, but when she looked up, a flicker of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Clyde took out an exquisite handkerchief and handed it to her. Seeing her flushed face, his sharp brows furrowed slightly. "Why didn't you call me if something happened?" Rose felt her nose sting, fighting hard to hold back her tears. "I'm fine." Clyde saw her stubbornness and immediately bent down to scoop her up from the chair. "Dear Clyde, what are you doing?" Rose panicked, can't even stand up anymore, yet still saying nothing's wrong. "Let me tell you, in a moment Sylvia's relatives will be here. Are you sure you want to sit here and be bullied?" Clyde said with measured tone. Rose was instantly speechless, letting him carry her out. She really can't stand up now, and no one knows when the illness started. Perhaps it was Sylvia's mom's slap that made it impossible for her to avoid. As the two were leaving, Rex happened to come out. He was worried Rose might get into trouble alone here, but as soon as he stepped out, he saw her being carried away by Clyde. Clyde took Rose directly to his department. Rose felt a bit better after taking the medicine and watched as he flipped through some medical records. "Dear Clyde, why did you come over tonight?" She couldn't help but ask curiously. Clyde closed the file. "It just happened to be my shift, and I heard some commotion in the operating room, so I went to check." Seeing how casually he said it, Rose didn't say anything more. "There's a bed inside. If you're tired, I'll carry you in to rest first." Clyde pointed to a small room not far away. Rose initially wanted to shake her head, but Clyde didn't give her a chance to refuse. "Your condition requires good sleep. If you can't fall asleep, we can chat." With that, Rose was already placed on the bed by him. The restroom inside was larger than Rose had imagined, a 2-meter bed, with desks and chairs arranged, and a large floor-to-ceiling window offering a view of the scenery outside. The setup inside the hospital was worlds apart. "Close your eyes," Clyde said. Rose closed her eyes. But instantly the image of Sylvia having a miscarriage flashed before her. She fell down the stairs on her own. I really didn't push her. She didn't know if Clyde would believe her, but she just needed someone to confide in. "I believe you." Clyde didn't hesitate for a second. Rose felt momentarily dazed upon hearing his words. Rose didn't know when she had fallen asleep, but upon waking, she felt utterly exhausted both physically and mentally. She couldn't pinpoint when this feeling had started, but by now it had become impossible to ignore. "Wake up, time for breakfast." Clyde heard the movement and opened the door. Rose got up and walked out stiffly. Outside, shrimp and corn porridge was prepared, smelling delicious, but she had little appetite. "Sylvia, how is she?" She didn't care about Sylvia, she just wanted to know her condition. Clyde said indifferently while serving her porridge. "She's fine, but the baby is gone." Rose lost even more appetite after hearing this. Looking at the porridge he handed to her, "It's not your fault. I know you wouldn't push her," Clyde said. Rose forced a smile. "Thank you for believing in me." Her nose tingled with emotion as she brought the porridge to her lips, tears involuntarily falling into the bowl. People are strange sometimes. When everyone is criticizing you, you might not feel like crying, but the moment someone offers comfort, you inexplicably lose control over your tear ducts. Clyde simply gave Rose a gentle pat on the shoulder without saying a word. After she finished breakfast, Clyde drove her back to the neighborhood. Rose had barely taken a few steps into the house when she saw the man smoking in the living room. She had never seen him smoke before. It seemed last night's events had hit him hard. "Why are you only coming back now?" Rex asked, his accusatory tone laced with concern. "How did you get into my house?" Rose regretted asking as soon as the words left her mouth. With Rex's means, there was nothing he couldn't accomplish. "Last night. Were you with Clyde?" Rex didn't answer her either, his bloodshot eyes fixed on Rose. Rose casually tossed her bag onto the coffee table. "Who I'm with is none of your business. You should focus on caring for your new wife." Rex frowned slightly. Extinguishing the cigarette in his hand, a silence fell over the room. After a long while, Rex stood up and placed a brand new car key on the table. "This is for you. I've repaired the old villa and tidied up the studio. If you..." Before he could finish, Rose cut him off. "I won't go back. You should keep the car for yourself." Rex walked straight up and shoved the keys right into Rose's hand. "Why are you still so stubborn?" Rose never expected that after being framed by Sylvia, Rex wouldn't come to interrogate her, but instead bring her a car and a house. Clutching the keys, she felt their weight like 1,000 pounds. The next second, she threw them straight to the ground. "Rex, do you think the grass is always greener on the other side? Didn't you say you really liked Sylvia? So what does this treatment of me mean now?" Rose glared at him, feeling a throbbing headache coming on. She had always thought she understood Rex well enough. A man who could remain chaste for 3 years for the one he loved. But now she realized he was exactly what others said. The one you can't have is always the most tempting. Rex was momentarily dazed, wanting to explain, but when he opened his mouth, he didn't know what to say. "Get some rest." In the end, he only said this one sentence before turning and leaving. Rose suddenly felt as if a weight had been lifted from her entire body, collapsing onto the sofa, staring blankly in the direction of the balcony. To be honest, she really wanted Rex to tell her that he had once loved her, but at the same time, she didn't want to know, afraid that the Rex in her heart would lose its essence. Perhaps she really was foolish. A week later, Rose had not seen Rex again. That day, as she turned on the TV, she suddenly heard a news bulletin interrupt the broadcast. At 9 o'clock this morning, Darren's family group's Twitter announced the divorce of its current president and the daughter of the Porter family conglomerate. This marriage, which lasted only a few months, has sparked widespread speculation. Rose looked at the news, her eyes filled with disbelief. She turned off the TV when suddenly her phone rang. Her heart skipped a beat as she picked it up and saw it was Clyde calling. "Dr. Clyde." She had thought Clyde would talk to her about Rex, but instead, she heard him ask, "Miss Rose, are you free to accompany me to a cocktail party tonight?" Clyde had helped her too much for her to refuse. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "Okay, evening." Clyde drove to pick her up, and they went together to choose a gown. While trying on the dress, Rose realized she had become frighteningly thin. Even the extra small size hung loosely on her, looking quite unflattering. She smiled bitterly. "Dr. Clyde, maybe I shouldn't go after all." Clyde stood behind her, letting the in-store designer personally alter the clothes to fit Ms. Rose. "You can't miss what you've promised to attend." Rose lifted the corners of her lips slightly. "Okay." The dress was quickly altered to Rose's measurements, and the makeup artist applied cosmetics to conceal the pallor on her face. Rose looked at her reflection in the mirror, finding a rare glow in herself. The two attended the cocktail party together. Rose doesn't like lively scenes, though she used to often accompany Rex to them. Over time, she grew accustomed to it. At the cocktail party, glasses clinked and numerous business tycoons were present. They exchanged pleasantries, but there was little sincerity in their expressions. Rose had always prided herself on being a good judge of character, but the one person she misjudged was Rex. She once believed she could win this man's genuine affection. Only after hitting a wall did she realize it was all in vain. "Young master, is this your girlfriend?" Someone came over to strike up a conversation. Rose hadn't even had the chance to explain when she saw Clyde not denying it, chatting happily with the person. She felt dazed and out of place here, just about to find an excuse to leave alone, when a scorching gaze from not far away caught her attention. Rose looked over and met Rex's eyes. Rex attended the banquet alone today, and many who tried to approach him were deterred by his unfriendly expression. As their gazes collided, Rose's heart fluttered nervously, and she quickly averted her eyes. Clyde also noticed the scene here, raising his glass in Rex's direction and lowering his voice as he spoke to Rose. "Some people only realize regret after losing something, but unfortunately, no one waits forever, right?" Rose forced a faint smile. Her gaze involuntarily drifted toward Rex's direction, whether it was due to Clyde's provocation or not. He soon left, not long after. A waiter carrying a tray of glasses brushed past Rose, but the next second, he slipped, spilling all the wine in his hands, which splashed directly onto Rose's dress. "I'm so sorry, let me take you to change your clothes," the waiter hurriedly said. "All right," Rose informed Clyde before following the waiter away. As she followed the waiter, the crowd thinned, and Rose felt her heart grow much calmer. Walking past the hotel pool, the starry sky outside was quiet and desolate, exuding a unique elegance. But as she went further, the waiter suddenly disappeared around the corner. Rose couldn't help but feel a pang of panic, vaguely sensing something amiss, and was about to leave. Suddenly, a warm embrace enveloped her, and a man's deep, magnetic voice whispered in her ear, "Rose, I suddenly think you're being cruel." Listening to Rex's voice, Rose couldn't help but frown. She didn't understand what he meant by that. Clearly, it had always been him bullying her. How had she gone too far? "Let me go." Rex ignored her, holding her even tighter. "Clyde's identity is unclear and dubious. What good is there in following him?" Rose felt an inexplicable warmth at the tip of her nose, and a bitter taste rose in her throat. "At least he'll be good to me. That's only temporary. He won't always be good to you." Rex gently stroked her hair with his large hand, pausing for a long moment before continuing in a hoarse voice, "Rose, can we get back together? I promise this time, I won't let you down." Rose felt as if something had struck her heart violently. She would rather Rex never loved her in his entire life than hear his belated confession. How much sincerity was hidden within, she couldn't see. Her hand was slightly stiff, and she struggled to lift it, trying to push Rex away. But he remained unmoved. "Rex, that's enough. I'm not some plaything you can summon and dismiss at will." Rex showed a fleeting look of desolation in his eyes, then suddenly scooped up Rose and carried her out of the hotel. "What are you doing?" Rose panicked involuntarily. "Taking you home," Rex replied coldly. Rose, her eyes reddened at the corners. Where did she even have a home to return to now? She struggled to push him away, but her body had stiffened from the intense emotional turmoil, making her no match for him. After Rex placed her in the car, she gasped for breath. Rex sensed something was wrong. "I'll take you to the hospital right now. Don't be afraid." Along the way, Rex drove the car very fast. Rose sat in the passenger seat, gasping for breath, with blood flowing from her nose and mouth. As time passed, her consciousness began to blur. Beside her, Rex held her hand tightly with one hand, yet she felt no warmth at all, her hollow gaze fixed on the window. The sky outside seemed to grow slightly brighter. The trees outside have also become lush and green. When did spring arrive? She hadn't even noticed. Hospital, emergency room. The doctor finally managed to stabilize Rose and came out to look at Rex. "She's fine now. Just remember not to let the patient get emotionally agitated. Her condition can only be managed slowly over time." "Okay, I understand." Rex finished speaking, then strode into the ward. His heart filled with lingering fear as he saw the woman's pale face. Just moments ago, he thought he was about to lose her again. Rose felt as if she had slept for a long time, and when she woke again, it was already the early hours of the next morning. Outside, a pot of spider plants bore the morning dew, and the white bed curtains fluttered in the breeze. She looked around the room. Nothing had changed. She returned to the place where she once lived with Rex. Creak, the door was pushed open. Rex walked in, meeting her gaze directly, and quickly stepped inside. "How are you? Anywhere else feeling unwell?" he asked. Rose never imagined that she would also receive Rex's care. In the past, she had only experienced such tenderness in her dreams, but now, truly feeling it, she still finds it unreal, as if in the next moment, he would speak coldly to her again. "I want to go back," she said. Rex gently held her face instead. "You're not well now, and the place you live is too small. It's completely unsuitable for recovery." As he spoke, he worried his tone might have been too cold, afraid it would upset her. Then, softening his voice, he added, "When you're feeling better, I'll take you back." "All right." The voice sounded like coaxing a child. Rose, for a moment, she was dazed, staring at the man's handsome face, feeling it was absurd. She must be dreaming. Rose, she tried to prop herself up, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't muster the strength. Rex, seeing this, he helped her sit up properly. "Be good. I'll go make breakfast for you now." After saying that, he turned and left. As the door was gently closed, Rose felt this didn't seem like Rex. How could he be so gentle with her? She couldn't be bothered to think about why he had changed so suddenly. Maybe it was because Sylvia had dumped him, and he thought she, having been his stand-in for years, couldn't leave him now. He was just a sentimental man, after marrying him. She knew the banging sounds downstairs were Rex cooking. Inside the villa, there were no servants. In the past, everything was done personally by Rose. After all, as a girl from an ordinary family, she could handle anything. Why hire servants? This was what Rex had told her, Rose recalled with a bitter smile. When her father was still around, she was also the Chester family's heiress, and her family's status was no less than Rex's. She too had been cherished and protected since childhood. But after her brother and father left, no one cared for her anymore, and she became dejected. Tears streamed uncontrollably down her cheeks. She closed her eyes, her fingers unconsciously digging into her palms. The voices downstairs continued. And it wasn't until much later that Rex finally came up. Even if chaos reigned downstairs, when Rose saw him, he still carried himself with noble grace. First, have some millet porridge to settle your stomach. Later, I'll have my assistant bring over some food, Rex whispered softly into Rose's ear. Rose tilted her head to look at the porridge he had cooked, which actually looked somewhat decent. I'm not hungry, I don't want to eat. Then what would you like to eat? What I want to eat, you wouldn't be able to make. Rose simply didn't want to waste her breath arguing with him. Rex's expression stiffened slightly before he picked up the phone and called his assistant. Get the best chef from Jingda over here. Jingda is the Darren family's group's catering business, with top-tier chefs. Rex hung up the phone and looked at Rose. Eat a little first, or it'll be bad for your stomach. As he spoke, he picked up a spoon and fed the porridge to Rose's lips. Rose coughed dryly and parted her lips slightly. Rex, did Sylvia abandon you? Rex stiffened, momentarily at a loss for words. Rose, seeing his silence, naturally assumed the answer was yes. She tilted her head to look at him. Sylvia's cast-offs aren't something I want either. I'm not a junk collector. After speaking, she thought Rex would surely fly into a rage and throw her out immediately. However, the man simply quietly withdrew the spoon, his expression darkening. After a long while, the man finally spoke. It's not that she didn't want me, it's that you don't want me anymore. For some reason, Rex felt an unprecedented pain upon saying those words. He felt as if something was choking his breath, leaving him gasping for air. A woman who loved him and catered to his every whim suddenly stopped loving him one day. This feeling is even more unbearable than never having someone at all. A moment of silence hung in the air. Rose averted her gaze, turning her head to look out the window, unwilling to let him see her reluctance. Get some rest. Rex finished speaking, set down the porridge, and left. The room was so quiet that only the sound of wind rustling through leaves could be heard. Rose, having barely regained some strength, leaned against the wall as she made her way outside. Standing on the second floor, she saw Rex gathering quite a few people, busily directing them in some unknown task. Rex noticed her gaze and looked up, meeting her eyes. Want to go somewhere with me? He asked. Rose hadn't even answered when Rex strode toward her, scooping her up before she could react. Rex, Rose looked utterly flustered. Rex softly reassured. Don't worry, I won't eat you. With that, he effortlessly carried her downstairs. Rose leaned against his chest, listening to the rhythm of his heartbeat, lost in a momentary daze. Where are you taking me? Rex remained silent, guiding her forward. Rose recognized the familiar path, her grip on his clothes tightening slightly. The two arrived at their old studio, which was now several times larger and much brighter and more spacious than before. Rex carefully placed her on a nearby chair. I'll have professionals restore all your sketches digitally. I promise they'll be back before your eyes very soon. Rose listened to his words but found them somewhat ironic. It was him who destroyed the studio, and it was also him who said he would restore it. Mr. Rex really went all out, she said, taking a deep breath. Rex fell silent for a moment before speaking after a long pause. I was wrong before, and I'll make up for everything. Rose lowered her head with a bitter smile. When she spoke again, her voice choked involuntarily. The studio might be restored, but how can people's hearts ever return to how they were? As long as you're willing to come back to me. Rex reached out to pull Rose into his arms, but she stepped back repeatedly, avoiding his hand. I have a few questions to ask you. Go ahead. Rose pursed her lips. Why did you suddenly divorce Sylvia? Why are you doing all this to me now? She had been with Rex for 3 years. She knew this man's temperament. He had never apologized to anyone. The only time he ever showed weakness to a rival ended with the opposing company going bankrupt. For someone like him, why would he repeatedly extend olive branches and apologize to her? The man remained silent for a long time. Rose couldn't help but feel afraid. I told you. She fell down the stairs by herself that day. It really wasn't me. Before she could finish her sentence, Rex stepped forward and forcefully pulled her into his arms. Whether it is or not doesn't matter anymore. Rex paused for a long moment before speaking again. The child she's carrying isn't mine. Rose's eyes were filled with shock, unable to believe it for a long time. At this moment, she should have mocked Rex, laughed at him for the woman he waited years for, only to be betrayed. But she couldn't bring herself to laugh. So, you divorced her and now want to get back together with me? Is that why you've been so nice to me? Reality often slaps you in the face, and that's exactly how she felt at this moment. No one likes to be settled for. Rex stroked her hair. It's not. He was about to explain when the phone rang. Rose saw the caller ID, Sylvia. Her heart inexplicably twinged. I'll be right back. Rex finished speaking, released Rose, turned his back to her, walked away, and answered the phone. Rose watched the man's figure and couldn't help but follow him. A spring rain fell unexpectedly. She stood there in the rain, watching Rex's car gradually disappear into the distance, just like their marriage, which was probably beyond repair. The villa on the mountainside had no traffic coming or going. Rose had no choice but to stiffly walk back alone. The vast villa felt eerily empty and frightening. In the past, she had spent countless days and nights here alone, yet never felt this way, because she knew Rex, her husband, would always come home. But now, she knew her ex-husband could only remain an ex-husband. Rose sat alone by the window, letting the cold wind blow on her, as if this could somehow clear her mind. In the empty room, her phone rang. By the time she sluggishly walked over, the ringing had already stopped. She picked up her phone and saw numerous missed calls, all from Clyde. These past 2 days, Rex had put her phone away, and she only just saw it now. She picked up her phone and replied, "Dear Clyde, where are you now?" Clyde's voice was full of panic after Rose disappeared from the party. He searched everywhere for her but found no trace. He feared something had happened to her after her illness flared up. "I'm fine, sorry to worry you. I was taken back to the Rex villa on the mountainside." Rose spoke while suppressing a cough. She reached to close the window but found her fingers too stiff to move. "I'm coming to get you right now. There are security guards here. You won't be able to enter," Rose replied. "I'll figure something out." Clyde hung up the phone after speaking. Rose looked outside with some concern. It had already grown dark, and she knew the security around the villa was tight. Ordinary people couldn't possibly get in. As time ticked by, Rose leaned wearily against the window, ultimately giving up on closing it. The raindrops fell on her face, cold and chilling. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine starting came from not far away. Dazedly opening her eyes, she saw a Bentley charging straight in from the distance. The bodyguards failed to stop him. Clyde opened the car door and stepped out, standing in the rain as he looked toward the house. Rose's eyelashes trembled slightly, and the phone she was holding slipped from her hand. The screen displayed Rex's contact page. She wanted to call, but in the end, she didn't. Clyde charged through the rain, knocking down the bodyguard blocking his way with a single punch, and rushed toward us. The Bentley behind him also had several bodyguards getting out, and the two groups started fighting. Rose wanted to leave, but at that moment, her limbs were stiff, and she couldn't move at all. Screech! The door was forcefully pushed open from the outside. Clyde was drenched in his suit, seeing Rose sitting pale on the windowsill. He knew she was ill and hurried over. He lifted Rose into his arms from behind. "It's okay now, I'm here. Let's go home." His voice was gentle, a tenderness Rose rarely felt. Trembling, she clutched Clyde's clothes and whispered weakly, "Thank you, dear Clyde." Clyde held her as he walked outside, carefully shielding her from the rain with his coat. At that moment, 2 high beams shone towards them. Rex stopped the car, stepped out with an umbrella, his face dark and gloomy. "Clyde, I advise you to give her back to me." Clyde glanced at Rose in his arms and saw her shaking her head. "Give her back, and you'd just leave her alone at home. Do you know her condition is critical now, and something could happen at any moment? If he weren't holding Rose right now, he'd want to punch Rex." Rex heard his words and looked at Rose, noticing her abnormal state, his eyes tightening with concern. "My affairs are none of your business." He stepped forward. "Rose, I'm back. I'll take you to the hospital right away." Rose heard his address to her, her blurred gaze lifting to meet his as she watched his hand draw nearer. Summoning all her strength, she reached out her hand. Rex unconsciously smiled. Just as he thought Rose was about to return with him, she forcefully shook off his hand. "You promised to let me go back." Rose struggled to speak. Rex froze in place, his hand lingering in mid-air before slowly lowering. Clyde carried Rose into the car and drove away from the hillside villa. The rain grew heavier through the night. Rex stood there in the rain, his expression unreadable. The assistant approached reluctantly, saying, "Mr. Rex, should we go back inside?" Rex had reddened eyes. "I shouldn't have left in such a hurry today. The assistant sighed. No one could have predicted the old man's accident today, this noon. Sylvia was at the old house when the old man accidentally fell and suffered a cerebral hemorrhage, so he called him. Have someone follow the madam. It was the first time he addressed Rose as such. Okay. The assistant was about to make arrangements when Rex stopped him. Make sure she doesn't find out. Clyde took Rose back to Maple Forest Community, and the rain outside hadn't stopped yet. He placed Rose in the bathtub in the bathroom, then filled it with hot water. Watching the fragile woman lying there, he cautiously reached out his hand. Do you need my help? As the hot water touched her body, Rose gradually regained some strength and shook her head. I can manage on my own. Though she is now 23 years old, she has never had any intimate contact with anyone. Clyde nodded politely. I'll get your pajamas for you. Call me if you need anything, okay? Rose forced a faint smile at him. Clyde looked at the shallow dimples on her face, suppressing the urge to kiss her, his slender fingers brushing lightly past. After he left, Rose carefully began undressing. The man quickly found the pajamas and placed them within her easy reach. Because of her illness, her bath took over an hour. Clyde waited patiently outside the whole time, worried she might have an accident, checking on her every 10 minutes. Rose felt an unprecedented sense of security for the first time, knowing that no matter what happened to her, Clyde would always be by her side. She leaned against the wall, trying to stand up. She slowly walked out, intending to grab her clothes. But suddenly her foot slipped. With a loud thud, she fell hard onto the ground, the pain making her frown deeply. Outside the door, Clyde heard the noise and, without another thought, pushed the door open. The woman was completely naked. Everything exposed to his sight, he quickly took off his robe and wrapped Rose in it, then picked her up. Where did you fall? Does it hurt? He asked gently. Rose blushed deeply and stammered, no, just some scrapes on my hand and leg. Clyde frowned slightly with his sword-like brows, then picked her up and carried her toward the bedroom. Rose felt her face burning intensely at this moment. Her robe didn't cover much, leaving some parts exposed. She silently comforted herself. Clyde was a doctor. He was different from other men. Clyde touched her soft body with his hand, his Adam's apple slightly moving as he placed her on the bed and covered her with the blanket. I'll go get the first aid kit. Wait for me, okay? Rose dared not look at him. Clyde quickly found the first aid kit, brought it over, dipped a cotton swab in the medicine, and applied it to Rose. He saw that the skin on her arm was scraped off, bruised purple-red. From now on, let me help you instead, he said in a deep voice. Rose suddenly changed her expression. No need. Clyde heard the panic in her voice, looked up at her, and asked with a smile, what are you overthinking? Rose had always thought Clyde was a serious person, never expecting him to tease her. I don't, in a doctor's eyes. Aren't we all patients? I wasn't overthinking. Is that so? Clyde treated the wound on her hand and reached to pull back the blanket. Clyde, you. Rose grew even more flustered. Clyde didn't stop. Don't be afraid. Isn't your leg injured? But it was her thigh. Rose was too embarrassed to speak. Didn't they say doctors only see patients in their eyes? Clyde added. Rose blushed even deeper. Clyde stopped teasing her and slowly pulled back the blanket. Don't worry, he knew when to stop, his fingertips lightly brushing over the red and purple marks on her snow-white skin. Rose felt her heart flutter as she gazed at Clyde, unable to stop her thoughts from wandering. This simple act of applying ointment raised the temperature in the room. Rose dared not even breathe. Clyde, his Adam's apple bobbed slightly as he applied the ointment, then quickly stood up. Mind if I take a shower here? Rose hurriedly shook her head, only then noticing that Clyde was drenched from the rain. That night, the sound of running water in the bathroom never ceased. Rose lay on the bed, casting a few puzzled glances in that direction. It had been over half an hour. Clyde must have a cleanliness obsession. Why hasn't he come out yet? Finally, the water stopped running. Clyde stepped out wearing a bathrobe, his tall and upright figure appearing before Rose's eyes. He gazed deeply at Rose and asked, why aren't you asleep yet? Can't sleep. Clyde walked in, and the indoor temperature changed once again. Rose looked at him and said, Clyde, I'm fine here. You can go back now. I don't want to go back. Rose froze. In the past, when she said this, Clyde would always understand she was hinting for him to leave, and he would go. Before she could react, Clyde suddenly sat down by the bedside. Rose, startled, quickly shifted away slightly. Clyde watched her subtle movement, his lips curling unconsciously. Afraid of me? No. Rose realized her overreaction and shook her head. Clyde quietly watched her for a moment, then pulled her into his embrace the next second. Rose's face was pressed against Clyde's chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. Her face burning as she pulled away. Rose, Do you know how scared I've been these past 2 days? Clyde said hoarsely, his large hand gently stroking her back. Rose felt her breathing grow heavier. I'm sorry, I meant to call you, but Before she could finish her explanation, Clyde lowered his head and fiercely sealed her lips. Rose never expected things to unfold this way. Her hands unsure where to place themselves, a kiss deepened from light to heavy, leaving her almost breathless. His mountain-like body pressed down on her, his large hands roaming freely over her form. Rose felt her mind go blank, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. The cold wall against her back jolted her awake. No, don't, she instinctively refused. Clyde heard her words and restrained himself, pulling the blanket back over her before holding her tightly in his arms through the covers. I scared you. I'm sorry, he said in a low voice, gently kissing Rose's forehead while restraining himself. Rose's heart was racing, momentarily at a loss for words. Clyde held her tightly, showing no intention of letting go. One night, neither of them could sleep. By dawn, Clyde was preparing breakfast. Rose listened to the busy sounds from the kitchen. Feeling how absurd she had been, after freshening up, the two sat at the dining table. Clyde acted as if nothing had happened, serving her porridge. The desk was so quiet that she could hear the sound of her own heartbeat. Rose finally couldn't hold back and spoke up. Dear Clyde, thank you for taking care of me all these days, but we're not right for each other. Clyde's raised hand froze, forcing himself to stay composed. He looked at Rose. Are you trying to kiss and not take responsibility? Rose was momentarily speechless. Wasn't it him who kissed her yesterday? I'm not joking with you. As a divorced person, I'm not worthy of you, Rose said. Although Clyde was the Porter family's illegitimate child, his status was something Rose couldn't even dream of. She knew the Porter family's standing here was no less than the Darren family's. Clyde narrowed his gloomy eyes. Let's not talk about this, after today. Let's not meet again. Rose spoke up once more, her hand under the table unconsciously clenched a little tighter. Clyde, his dark eyes stared deeply at her. What did you say, Rose? She took a deep breath. I think it's better if we maintain our previous doctor-patient relationship. I'll request a new attending physician. Clyde, hearing her calm yet firm tone, he suddenly felt an inexplicable heaviness in his chest. Take a good rest. I'll go back for now. Promise me, Rose insisted stubbornly. Clyde looked at her serious face and realized he had no way to handle her. He even regretted why he couldn't control himself last night. My affairs are my own decisions, he said and walked out the door. Once outside, he didn't want to leave. The breakfast on the table was barely touched. Rose cleared it away and then went alone to the balcony to paint. But as soon as she picked up the brush, she inexplicably recalled the events of the previous night, unable to shake them off. She kept telling herself over and over that she didn't deserve it, that she didn't deserve kindness from others. As she spoke, the images of her brother and father's deaths flashed through her mind. Once, her brother had said, Our Rose will be the happiest girl in the world. However, after the accident, she married Rex, turned into a work machine, and was later abandoned. At the thought of past events, her hands couldn't stop trembling. She pressed her hands firmly, looked up at the sky, and took deep breaths to gradually calm herself down. A Maybach has been parked downstairs in Fenglin residential area since last night. Inside the Maybach, the man's face was dark with anger. Rex lit one cigarette after another, watching Clyde leave. Then asked the driver, did they do it? Do you think? The driver felt the air pressure in the car drop. Last night, Mr. Rex came over again because he was uneasy. He just sat in the car, staring at the direction of Rose's bedroom, where the light remained on all night. A man and a woman alone together. Such things are inevitable. But the driver didn't dare say it. Perhaps what? Rex glared at him coldly. There shouldn't be, the driver quickly replied. Rex didn't feel much better. He picked up the phone. Take over all of Porter Corporation's projects for me. With that, he hung up. Mr. Rex, are we heading to the company? The driver asked. Rex did not respond. He opened the car door and quickly stepped out. Heading upstairs, the driver watched him leave and let out a long sigh of relief. Rex arrived at Rose's door. He intended to knock and enter, but recalling her actions toward him yesterday, he withdrew his hand. He turned and went to the adjacent room, stepping onto the balcony, where he indeed saw Rose. At this moment, Rose was watering the sunflowers on the balcony when she noticed someone's gaze upon her. Looking up, Rex quickly hid. Rose remembered that someone had moved in next door and didn't pay much attention. Turning back to her room, she packed everything up and then went out, took a taxi to the mental hospital. Tina sat blankly on the edge of the bed, muttering to herself, they're all dead. Good that they're dead. Good. The doctor brought Rose over and said to her, The patient has been overstimulated, and recovery will be difficult now. Thank you for your trouble." After the doctor left, Rose entered the ward. Looking at Tina's current state, she suddenly thought this might be for the best. This way, Tina won't have to keep everything bottled up inside. "Mrs. Tina," she called. Tina saw her and suddenly widened her eyes, pointing at her and shouting, "Get out! I don't want to see you. Go away, go." Rose felt a lump in her throat as she stepped forward and took Tina's hand. Her hand felt icy cold as she breathed softly. "Mrs. Tina, I'll leave, you don't need to drive me away." Tina pushed her away upon hearing her words. "You wicked woman, don't you dare bully my Rose. Get away, get away. How could my Rose be sick? Why is she sick?" she muttered to herself again, speaking while crying. Rose couldn't hold back her tears upon hearing her words. "Mrs. Tina, so you also feel sorry for me, don't you?" Tina just kept muttering to herself, unwilling to even glance at Rose. The doctor rushed over, saw Rose lying on the ground, and quickly helped her out. She doesn't remember many people, but she keeps calling for Rose. Rose felt a lump in her throat. "I understand." After leaving the mental hospital, Rose felt like a wandering ghost with nowhere to go. She walked down the street, watching the crowds come and go, unsure of where she belonged. Passing by an orphanage, she looked at the children inside and suddenly felt a deep sense of peace. The director noticed her. "Miss, who might you be? May I come here to teach the children how to paint?" Rose suddenly said. Before the dean could speak, she added, "I don't want any payment." Some children heard that Rose wanted to teach them how to draw, and they all came over, their eyes filled with anticipation. Seeing this, the dean quickly nodded in agreement. "All right." After the dean agreed, Rose started teaching the children that very day. The lively interaction with them dispelled the loneliness in her heart. In the evening, on her way back, a child gave her a paper crane and insisted she must come again tomorrow. Rose agreed with a smile. As she walked back alone, just as she reached the building, she saw the moonlight spilling over the man's shoulders. Rose froze in her tracks, taking a long moment to snap out of it before turning to leave. Clyde suddenly grabbed her wrist. "How was your day?" he asked cautiously. "Pretty good, doctor. No need to worry." Rose spoke politely yet distantly, about to pull her hand away when the man suddenly embraced her tightly from behind. The warmth of his overcoat enveloped her. "We can be friends, just like before." Clyde's voice was slightly hoarse. Rose pried his hand away inch by inch. "But I don't want to be friends with you." She walked step by step toward home after saying those cold words, inexplicably feeling a discomfort in her heart. Clyde watched her leave, standing rooted to the spot for a long time. Rose returned home, utterly exhausted. She saw the table laden with delicious dishes. Clyde definitely didn't have a key to her place, which meant someone had invited themselves in. Sure enough, Rex emerged from the kitchen. "How about it? Doesn't it look appetizing?" Rose said coldly. "You should save it for Sylvia to eat. She'd surely be touched." Rex felt inexplicably better upon hearing her words, as his bodyguard had just reported how Rose rejected Clyde downstairs. "Are you jealous?" Rose had never seen someone so shameless. "You're overthinking it." Rex simply took it as her being stubborn. "Let's eat." "I won't eat." She had already eaten with the children at the orphanage before coming back. Rex wasn't angry either. "It's fine. I'll have someone throw these out and bring a new batch tomorrow." Rose could no longer hold back. "Rex, I must ask you to remember your place. You're my ex-husband. This is my house. Get out, or I'll call the police." In her agitation, her hands once again became uncontrollable, stiff and trembling. Rex hurried to her side. "Breathe in." "I'll call the doctor right away." Rose gasped for air and grabbed hold of him. "No need to call the doctor. Just leave me alone. I need some peace." Rex's face immediately darkened. "I can't be here." "But Clyde can. Do you know who he is?" Rose just glared at him fiercely without saying a word. Rex hated the way she was looking at him now. "Since you're sick, don't provoke me. You should know that Clyde can't give you marriage." "But I can." "I don't need it," Rose said weakly, hating her illness for preventing her from slapping this man. "I don't need any marriage. Get out." Rex refused to leave, calling people to clean the house before forcibly carrying Rose to bed. "What did you and Clyde do last night?" he asked. Rose felt her blood rush to her head. She raised her hand to slap him, but the man swiftly caught her wrist. "I can let bygones be bygones," he said, his hands moving to Rose's body. Rose shivered violently, struggling against him. "Rex, you bastard. Get away from me." But the man paid no heed. Rose was no match for him. She couldn't help but close her eyes, tears streaming down the corners. Rex's hand touched something cold and noticed her tears, quickly stopping. One night, Rose hid in a corner, afraid to sleep. Meanwhile, Rex slept poorly on the living room sofa, thinking he must replace the outdoor sofa first thing tomorrow morning. Rose was getting ready to teach the children when Rex forcibly took her into the car. "From now on, tell the driver where you want to go," he said. Rose remained silent, staring blankly out the window. Rex felt utterly helpless for the first time, while the driver in front didn't even dare to breathe loudly. It turned out the driver had also driven Rose before, back when the two were still married. The driver remembered how the wife used to agree with whatever Rex said back then, never expecting her to become so distant now. Arrived at the orphanage, Rose got out of the car directly, and only after seeing the child inside did she finally show a faint smile. Rex couldn't help feeling a pang of jealousy as he watched this scene. If he had lived properly with Rose in the past, their child would probably be quite grown by now. At that moment, the phone rang. "Mr. Rex, the old master says he wants to see you." Rex hung up the phone. "I understand." Driving to the hospital, Sylvia was also in the ward. The old man saw Rex arrive and couldn't contain his anger. "How dare you touch the Porter family's assets?" Sylvia spoke weakly. "Rex, I know I shouldn't have lied to you, but the Porter family's business is my grandfather's life's work. Could you return those projects?" Rex listened, stepped forward, and gave Sylvia a cold glance. "The business world is a battlefield. Those projects are worth billions. If the Porters want them, they'll have to pay." Sylvia stared at Rex in disbelief. He used to agree to everything she said. So why was he now determined to oppose the Porters? "Rex, I know you're trying to get back at the Porters because of me, but I really didn't mean to deceive you. I never expected that before coming back. I'm pregnant." The 3 words hadn't even left her lips yet. Rex cut her off abruptly. "Enough, get out." Sylvia stared at his indifferent face. Feeling nothing but strangeness, she stood up and walked toward Rex. "Everyone has their own past. Why can't you understand that?" Rex narrowed his eyes slightly. "Nothing you do matters to me. The only reason I married you was because you claimed to be carrying my child." Sylvia listened to his calm voice, her face instantly contorting with rage. "How is this possible? After all these years of feelings, weren't you always waiting for me?" As she spoke, she reached out to grab Rex's clothes. Rex forcefully pulled her hand away. "I hate being played the most. I hope you know better." With that, he signaled to the bodyguard behind him with a glance. The bodyguard understood immediately, stepping forward to bow and say to Sylvia, "Miss Sylvia, please." Sylvia walked out of the ward in a daze. Once outside, her eyes couldn't help but redden. She had originally intended to falsely accuse Rose of harming the child in her womb, but instead of gaining an advantage, she suffered a loss. Rex actually found out about her ex-boyfriend abroad. Moreover, he investigated the aborted child and discovered it wasn't his. Sylvia walked back stiffly, looked up at the sky, and realized she had nothing left now. In the hospital room, the old man watched Rex drive Sylvia out, growing increasingly baffled by his actions. "I thought you were very fond of Sylvia, which is why I agreed to your divorce from Rose. But what are you doing now?" Rex sat by his sickbed and said, "It's all my business. You don't need to worry." The old man sighed and said, "How can I not worry? Rose may not be from a prestigious family, but her abilities are Darren's family corporation's undeniable, and Sylvia behind her is the Porter family, whose influence is immeasurable. Now both of them have been." He didn't continue speaking. Rex looked out the window. "So in your eyes, is my marriage also just a transaction? As the heir to the Darren family conglomerate, you naturally need a virtuous partner. I know Rose isn't dead, and you've been trying to bring her back, but I've also learned about her illness. She can no longer be of help to the Darren family conglomerate." Grandpa Darren continued on his own. "If you're not satisfied with Sylvia, there's also the other family's daughter, Cliff's sister. Hasn't she always had feelings for you?" Rex, listening to these words, he only felt irritated. "It seems your health is quite good. I'll take my leave first." With those words, he turned and left without looking back. Grandpa Darren was so angered by his attitude that he sat up. "Rex, come back here." Rex didn't pause for a moment. After leaving the hospital and getting into the car, the driver asked, "Mr. Rex, to the company, to the orphanage," he said. The driver turned the car around and headed for the orphanage. Upon hearing this, at this moment, in the orphanage, Rose was teaching the children to draw small animals, flowers, and grass. It seemed she had rediscovered her original dream, the feeling of painting freely without any constraints. She no longer worried about being disliked by Rex due to poor design. No more late-night struggles just to have the qualifications to stand by Rex's side. Rex stood by the window, watching Rose laughing and chatting with the children, his lips unconsciously curling into a smile. He stood there for who knows how long, until a child finally noticed him. "Teacher, there's someone outside. Rose turned her head upon hearing this and saw Rex, her expression immediately darkening. I'll step out for a moment, you all continue drawing on your own, she said gently. Okay. Rex felt a momentary awkwardness when he saw her come out. Why did you come out? He asked. Rose looked at him impatiently. Mr. Rex, do you have nothing better to do? She still remembered how, in the past, when she simply wanted to paint a piece she liked, he had called her idle. Rex leaned over her. We don't have to talk like this between us. Rose felt nothing but helplessness. Why had this man turned back after she'd let go? Does this world never allow for mutual affection? I don't want to waste any more time with you. I hope you can have some self-awareness. As she was speaking, a few children clung to the door, their big eyes fixed on the two of them. Teacher, is he your boyfriend? Rose hadn't answered yet when Rex stepped forward naturally and said, yes. What nonsense are you talking? Wow, teacher, your boyfriend is so handsome. Some of the girls giggled and said, he's lying to you. Go study. Rose spoke more sternly, watching the children enter the classroom as she warned Rex, don't come here to bother me again. With that, she also entered the classroom. After staying in the classroom for a while, she looked out the window and indeed, the person was no longer there. Her mood lightened considerably. After class, the dean quietly called Rose into the office. Dean, is something wrong? The dean waved his hand. Rose, I'm here on behalf of the orphanage and the children to thank you. Thank you for donating 10 million to our institution and sending those children to good schools. Rose froze in place. What did you say? It's your boyfriend. He finished it this afternoon. From now on, you won't need to come teach the children yourself, though you're still welcome to visit them. Rose felt her mind go completely blank. Forcing a smile, she turned and walked outside. Her body swayed unsteadily as she moved, her heart just as hollow. She looked at Rex's car not far away and suddenly felt very uncomfortable, extremely unwell. Rose's vision blurred as she slowly crouched down, enduring the pain throughout her body while trembling. Rex, noticing something was wrong with her, quickly got out of the car and rushed over. Rose, are you okay? He hurriedly reached out his hands, about to embrace Rose. Rose forcefully raised her hand and shoved him away, glaring at him fiercely. Rex, do you think having money makes you special? Rex quickly understood her meaning. You don't want those children to have a better education. Rose bit her lip tightly, momentarily speechless. So, your talents shouldn't be wasted on teaching. Go back to Darren's house. The director position will always be yours, Rex added. Rose let out a cold laugh and mocked. Sylvia can't help you. So now you're trying to exploit my last remaining value. No, then what? Who gave you the right to make decisions for me? What are you to me? Since when do you get to dictate what I do? Rose had reddened eyes as she forced herself to stand and walk forward step by step. Rex watched her retreating figure with unprecedented panic. Feeling as though he could no longer salvage things with Rose, he followed behind her, maintaining a distance that was neither too close nor too far. The woman hadn't walked far when, thud, she collapsed to the ground. Rose woke up again to blinding light. She was in the operating room. Clyde appeared before her wearing a mask, his large hand gently stroking her forehead. Through the cold gloves, she couldn't feel his warmth. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Don't be afraid, it'll be over soon, Clyde whispered reassuringly. Rose felt inexplicably more at ease. She slowly closed her eyes, and various scenes began to surface in her mind. She saw her brother and father walking toward her, reaching out their hands to her. Rose tried to grasp them, and just as she was about to succeed, a sudden brightness flashed before her eyes. When she woke again, she found herself lying on a hospital bed. In the hallway, Rex and Clyde stood together. If you truly regret it, then stop provoking her, Clyde said. Rex darkened his gaze. What I do is none of your business. Clyde threw a punch at Rex upon hearing this. Rex fought back without backing down, the two men no longer maintaining their previous gentlemanly demeanor. Rose turned to look, but the door was closed and she couldn't see anything. She faintly heard a nurse calling for Dr. Clyde. An inexplicable panic rose in her heart as she leaned against the wall and stood up. Rex, stop it. Rose opened the door, and the two men outside stopped fighting, both bearing bruises on their faces. Her gaze fell upon Clyde's face. Dr. Clyde, are you okay? Clyde gave her a faint smile. I'm fine. After speaking, he looked at Rex. Rex also had blood at the corner of his mouth. He stared blankly at Rose, realizing she hadn't even glanced his way. Rose tried to move forward but nearly stumbled. Clyde caught her in time. You've just recovered. You shouldn't move around so carelessly. Rose nodded, glancing at Rex in the distance without saying anything. Back to the ward, Clyde said to Rose while performing basic checks. Didn't you say you changed doctors? Why hasn't any doctor reviewed your case? Rose lowered her head without saying a word. Clyde gave her a deep look. Do you realize how dangerous this is for you? I'm sorry, Rose parted her pale lips. I don't like hearing apologies. If you don't cherish your own body, who will? Rex. Clyde's eyes were slightly red at the corners. Rose kept her head down, unaware of the change in his gaze. I originally planned to wait a few days. In a few days, it might cost you your life. I didn't save you just for you to ruin your body like this. Clyde's voice suddenly rose. Rose had never seen him so angry before, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. A long silence hung in the air. Dr. Clyde, you're injured. You should go get it treated, Rose added. She found herself unable to meet Clyde's gaze at this moment, afraid he would blame her, but it was indeed her own fault. I don't need to deal with it, Clyde said coldly. After speaking, he started in for Rose. His movements indifferent, Rose felt like he had become a different person, suddenly appearing terrifying, devoid of the gentleness he once had. Wait a moment, the nurse will come to deliver the meal. Eat it all, Clyde said before leaving the ward. Rose couldn't help but sigh in relief, lying quietly on the hospital bed like a child who had done something wrong. At that moment, her phone suddenly rang. Picking it up, she saw it was an unknown number. As she picked up, she heard Sylvia's voice from the other end. Rose, you really have some nerve, not only seducing Rex, but even getting involved with my uncle. Over the phone, Sylvia's voice was seething with anger. Rose frowned involuntarily. If you can't keep your man in check, that's on you. Sylvia took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. I advise you to stay away from Clyde. Do you even know what Rex has done to the Porter family because of your affair with him? Rose didn't understand what she meant until she spoke up. Go check what's happening online. Sylvia hung up the phone. Rose opened the news. There was a sarcastic headline. The love-hate saga between Darren Group's CEO and the Porter family heiress. Clicking on it, Rose realized that Rex had been targeting the Porter family for some time. Many people speculated that it was related to Sylvia, saying Rex turned love into hatred. At this moment, Sylvia's message came through again. It's because of you. If you don't believe me, you can ask him yourself. Rose irritably put her phone aside. When she had entered the ward earlier, Rex had already left. She stayed in the hospital for a week. During this time, Rex also came over. She asked him about the Porter Group, and he replied that it was normal competition. Rose had also seen the projects secured by Darren's family these past few days. They were simply throwing money at them, with no intention of making a profit. Nowadays, Rex has severed many business ties with the Porter Group, which is completely unlike his usual approach. That day, Clyde finished examining her and prepared to leave. Rose couldn't help but call out to him. Is the Porter family doing all right these days? Clyde had been very cold toward her, completely like a doctor treating a patient, to be precise. His attitude toward patients was even better than how he treated her. You should be worried about your health, Clyde said. My health has improved a lot. Look, my hands have been very flexible lately. I can even eat by myself now. Rose stretched out her hand to Clyde as proof. She knew his cold treatment stemmed from concern for her well-being. Clyde gazed at her pale, slender hands, his eyes unreadable. Really, I'm fine now. Rose hadn't finished speaking when Clyde suddenly grasped her hand. The atmosphere between them instantly changed. Rose tried to pull her hand back, but he held it firmly. What would you do if I said I'm not okay? Clyde asked. Rose couldn't answer immediately. She stared blankly at their intertwined hands. I'll make it clear to Rex, the two of us, saying there's nothing between us. Clyde cut her off. Rose nodded. I'm truly sorry for all the trouble I've caused you and the Porter family these days. Clyde took a few steps forward until he was right in front of her. He grasped her hand tightly while bracing his other hand on the bed, leaning down to gaze at her intently. Are we really nothing to each other? As he inched closer, Rose held her breath, barely daring to breathe. Just listen to Clyde ask, do you still like Rex? Rose couldn't quite say. How could someone she had loved for so long be easily labeled as liked or disliked? Clyde's gaze darkened inch by inch. I understand. Rest assured that both I and the Porter family are unharmed. With that, he released Rose's hand and walked out. Outside, a nurse approached. Dr. Clyde, the relieving doctor has arrived. I see. Dr. Clyde, are you really going abroad? The nurse couldn't help but ask again. Clyde glanced toward Rose's hospital bed. Yes, please provide all of Rose's medical records to the new doctor. Also, let him know he can consult me if any issues arise. The nurse nodded repeatedly, watching him leave. Thinking how fortunate this Rose really was, 3 days later, Rose was discharged from the hospital. Clyde did not come. Before leaving, she couldn't help but ask the nurse, Dr. Clyde hasn't been coming to the hospital recently, Dr. Clyde resigned. He went abroad, the nurse replied. Rose froze for a moment upon hearing this. Oh, do you know where he went? I'm not sure, but don't worry, Dr. Clyde has already detailed your condition to the new doctor. Rose suddenly felt an emptiness in her heart. She nodded with a smile and walked out with stiff steps. Once outside, she noticed many people were already wearing summer clothes. Time had passed so quickly, she suddenly couldn't remember when she had met Clyde. It felt like both a long time ago and just yesterday, not far away. Rex stood in front of a Bugatti, watching her come out before quickly walking toward her. Rose, I'm here to take you home. Rose looked at him in a daze. Home. Rex noticed her unusual reaction and reached out his hand. Yes, let's go home. Rose gazed at this man for a long moment before finally responding. Okay. Rex didn't expect her to agree. He helped her into the car and handed her a large bouquet of roses before they got in. Rose sat in the car holding the roses. She lowered her head to look at the petals, her eyes inexplicably moist. Rex, she suddenly spoke. What's wrong? Rex held her hand. Rose looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. Rex, can we not get divorced? Rex froze completely. What did you say? Rose suddenly fell silent again, staring blankly out the window as she murmured to herself. Rex, I don't like roses. I prefer sunflowers. Her voice was very soft. Rex didn't catch what she said. He sensed that Rose was acting strangely, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what was wrong. The two returned to the hillside villa. Rose followed carefully behind him, watching the scenes before her and suddenly feeling a sense of unfamiliarity. Rex, I remember there was an apricot tree there. How come it's gone? She suddenly spoke up. Rex followed her gaze to the empty spot. He remembered the apricot tree had died 2 years ago. Rose, are you feeling unwell? He asked. Rose found his concerned gaze strange and said, I'm fine, not feeling unwell at all. Rex remained worried. To prevent Rose from any mishap, he hired several nannies to take care of Rose. Don't you dislike having outsiders at home? Rose asked. From now on, everything will be about you, Rex said. Rose felt as if she had just woken up from sleep, and everything had changed. The previously indifferent Rex suddenly became gentle towards her. A week passed. Rose stayed obediently at home and even went to the studio to paint. Rex felt as if everything had returned to how it once was, except he noticed that Rose would often gaze blankly at a certain spot. Sometimes she would suddenly ask him about things from the past. Rex consulted the doctor, who told him that the patient's condition might have worsened. Just like the elderly, she tends to forget recent events, while memories of the past become increasingly clear. In fact, neither medication nor surgery can completely cure this disease. We can only let nature take its course. The best approach is to maintain a calm mindset. After all, she is still young and may have a chance to recover. Rose also noticed something was wrong with herself. She realized that sometimes she forgot many things, but at other times, she could remember again. Her phone screen often stayed on a call interface, but she didn't dare to make the call. In summer, a storm arrives. With fierce winds and lightning outside, Rose wrapped herself in the blanket. Trembling with fear, she couldn't resist checking her phone, desperately wanting to call someone, yet unable to remember who. Rex opened the door and looked at the person curled up on the bed, his eyes filled with heartache. I'm back. Rose heard his voice and pulled the blanket aside a little. Rex, I'm a little scared. It's okay now. Rex pulled her into his arms. Rose leaned against his chest and suddenly felt like crying. Rex, I think I've forgotten something important. Don't think about it. It's okay. I'm here. Rex gently patted her back. Rose clenched her palm until it hurt, and fragments of memories flashed before her eyes. Rex pushed away. Get out, get out. Rex knew she was remembering again and quickly softened his voice. All right, I'll leave. Don't get agitated. After he left, Rose lay alone on the bed, trying to recall recent events but struggling to remember. She suddenly felt terrified, afraid she might forget everything in the future. She wasn't afraid of the torment of illness, but only feared becoming like a walking corpse, remembering nothing. Would she even have a past then? At this thought, she couldn't help but pick up the phone and dial Clyde's prearranged doctor. The call connected, and the doctor sounded somewhat impatient. Mrs. Rose, what's the matter so late at night? Sorry to bother you, but I wanted to ask about my memory. I've noticed I often forget recent events lately, and I'm terrified. Will it get worse? Rose asked, her voice trembling. After hearing this, the doctor told her, when I first took over your case, you didn't have this condition. I think you might need to contact your previous Dr. Clyde. Rose remained silent for a long time upon hearing the name Dr. Clyde, then finally said, all right, thank you for your trouble. The call ended on the other side. Rose realized that in this world, only Clyde would always care about her condition. She wanted to call and tell him about her symptoms. But she didn't dare, nor did she want to disturb him again. That night, while she could still remember some things, she sat alone on the balcony, watching the rain fall, afraid to sleep. The next day, early morning, the rain had stopped. Rex carefully entered and saw her leaning against the chair, holding her phone as she slept. Rex gently picked her up and placed her on the bed. Her clenched phone slipped down. Rex was about to set her phone aside when he accidentally touched the screen and saw Clyde's call displayed. His heart tightened as he took the phone and realized Rose hadn't called Clyde. He glanced at Rose again, the affection in his eyes growing deeper. "Don't blame me," he said, deleting Clyde's phone number. After falling ill, Rose became particularly drowsy. When she woke up again, it was already evening. The servant served her food, but she had little appetite. "Where's my phone?" The servant handed the phone to her, and she opened it, scrolling through the device. "Madam, please eat first," the servant said. Rose suddenly asked, "Did any of you touch my phone?" The servant shook her head in confusion. "I don't know. The phone has been right here all along. None of us touched it, but one of the phone numbers in here is missing." Rose spoke, her voice involuntarily choking up. Her tears fell unbidden, splashing onto the phone screen. She searched over and over, but couldn't find Clyde's number anywhere. "Where's his number? How did it disappear? Why can't I find it?" The sound of the door opening came from downstairs. The maid hurried down and saw Rex returning, quickly telling him, "Sir, Madam seems unwell. She refuses to eat and insists someone tampered with her phone." "I see." Rex quickly headed to the dining room. Rose heard his voice and quickly stood up, walking towards him. "Rex, I'm missing a number in my phone. I can't find it. What should I do?" Rex felt a pang in his heart as he watched her flustered and anxious. "What number?" he asked. Rose tried to recall but couldn't remember. I don't remember whose call it was." "Rex, can you help me find it?" Rex felt a lump in his throat as he watched her flustered expression. It seemed clear to him now. His Rose no longer cared for him. "All right, I'll help you find it. Let's eat first." "Okay," he said softly. "I don't want to eat," Rose said, walking upstairs alone with her phone in hand. "Why can't I just remember?" She hit her head with her hand, muttering to herself, "Why can't I remember?" Rex looked at the table full of food, but had no appetite either. He followed Rose upstairs, afraid she might fall, carefully reaching out to steady her. When they returned to the room, Rose sat motionless on the bed. "Rex, when will we find him? I feel so uneasy." "Soon. Can you give me your phone first?" Rex gazed at her tenderly. The corners of his eyes tinged red. Rose hesitated for a long moment before finally handing him the phone. Rex placed the phone aside, then lay down beside Rose, pulling her into his embrace. "Rose, do you think we should have a child these days?" The doctor said Rose was in poor health, and he hadn't touched her, but now, he was growing increasingly worried, feeling she would soon leave him. He remembered Rose once saying she wanted a child. If they had a child, would her heart return to him? He lowered his head and gently kissed her forehead, slowly moving downward. Rose shivered uncontrollably, her fists clenched tightly in fear. This was clearly something she had been looking forward to for so long. Yet now she felt a sense of resistance, even torment. She slowly closed her eyes, and an image surfaced in her mind. In that image, a man was kissing her tenderly. He was dressed in white, seemingly a doctor. He is not Rex. Rose and couldn't recall when he had ever met such a man. The moment the air touched her skin, she jolted awake, covering herself. I'm not ready yet." Rex felt a momentary loss, then pulled her into his embrace. "All right, I'll wait for you." This Rex was not the one in her memories. Rose knew she had forgotten some things, which was why she couldn't recall why he was suddenly being so kind to her. The night was windy. Rose moved Rex's arm away from her and slept in the corner, tilting her head to glance at the phone not far away. She knew she could never get that person back. Another half-month passed. With the cool autumn breeze, Rex had arranged for a family doctor to visit Rose regularly to check on her health. After the examination, the doctor spoke with Rex outside. "Mr. Rex, your wife's condition is quite poor. I believe she needs a psychologist for specialized counseling." Rex also knew that recently, Rose hadn't even been painting, just staring outside every day. Before leaving, the doctor said to him, perhaps having someone she cares about by her side might ease her condition a bit. Rex initially planned to have Tina live with him at the villa, but the doctor there said her condition was unstable and she often harmed others. He had no choice but to give up the idea. Later, fearing the servants wouldn't take good care of Rose, he started bringing her along to work every day. He restored Rose's old office and had her sit inside it, Rose looking at everything so familiar. She wanted to take action, but often found herself powerless despite her intentions. The key point is, she felt as if she had lost something. Day by day, she often stares at her phone. That day, an unfamiliar phone call came through. She hurriedly answered, and a familiar voice came through the line. "I heard from your doctor that you're not doing well. Have you stopped taking your medication again?" Rose wanted to speak to him, but she didn't know who he was. Tears welled up in her eyes as she heard Clyde scolding her over the phone. "I sent my assistant to your place, and the sunflowers have all withered. How could you be so careless?" Home. Her home wasn't in. Rose clenched her hands tightly, preventing her sobs from being heard by the person on the other end. On the other side, Clyde looked at the dark sky. "It's night here, how about you?" he muttered to himself, not hearing a response, thinking Rose had already hung up the phone. He spoke on the phone for a long time just like that. Rose held her phone and fell into a deep sleep listening to his voice. She hadn't slept this well in a long time. These past few days, Rose took her medicine on her own and ate quite a bit of food. Rex couldn't help but sigh in relief. "Eat slowly, no need to rush." Rose smiled at him. After finishing the meal, she returned to her room alone and locked the door from inside. Rex noticed her behavior and frowned, asking the servant beside him, "Has Madam been acting unusually lately?" The servant thought for a moment. "Madam received a phone call earlier, and then she asked us to buy sunflowers." "Sunflowers?" Rex looked towards Rose's room and then said, "Give me the key to Madam's room." Yes, late at night, Rex opened the door and entered, immediately noticing several pots of sunflowers placed on the balcony. Rose was already asleep in bed, her phone lying beside her. Rex walked over, turned on her phone, and found only one call inside. He checked and saw it was Clyde calling. His expression turned cold as he blocked the number. After putting it back in place, he leaned down and kissed Rose's forehead. Rose turned over and said, "Dear Clyde, I've been taking my medicine properly." Rex's gaze grew even colder as he lowered his head and kissed her fiercely, pulling her into an overbearing embrace, his large hands roaming freely. Rose was quickly startled awake, watching Rex's actions in alarm. "Let go of me, Rex, what are you doing?" Rex grabbed Rose's hand, his eyes reddening. "Do you still love me?" Rose froze, unsure why he was asking her this. Rex, seeing she didn't respond, lowered his head and showered her with dense kisses. "Don't, Rose, be good and listen," he said in a deep voice. Rose struggled to resist but was no match for him. Biting his back, Rex cupped her hair with his large hand, as if feeling no pain. "Didn't you say you'd love me forever, Rose? Are you going back on your word?" Rose shook her head. "Let me go, don't do this, I beg you, please." "Do you have feelings for Clyde?" Rex asked. When Clyde's name surfaced in her mind, memories came flooding back like a rushing stream. Rose raised her hand and slapped Rex across the face. "Get out!" Rex felt his cheeks burn as he looked at Rose's furious eyes and slowly released her. After he left, Rose sat up, unconsciously recalling Rex's words. Had she fallen for Clyde? She gazed at the sunflowers on the balcony, stood up, and walked over, her fingertips brushing against the petals. The next day, Rose packed her belongings, ready to move out of the hillside villa. She wanted to leave early while she still remembered. The servant hurriedly called Rex, and soon he drove back. As the car window rolled down, Rose saw his face looking utterly exhausted. She had never seen Rex like this before. "Where to?" "I'll give you a ride," he said. "No need. I'm going home." "Let's not see each other again," Rose said. Rex fell silent for a moment. "I'll take you home one last time. You should know that without my say-so, you wouldn't be able to leave either." Rose had no choice but to get in the car. The journey back was short, and neither of them spoke. Upon arriving at Maple Grove Community, Rex suddenly spoke up. "Take care on your way, you too. Take care." Just two simple sentences. Rose knew that from now on, the two of them would be strangers. Returned home, Rose received a text message on her phone. A deposit notification. The amount above was enormous. She knew it was Rex who sent it, but she just turned off her phone without saying a word. On the other side, Rex drove away. He watched the neighborhood behind him grow increasingly distant. Just like Rose, who would never return, Rose returned home. The sunflowers on the balcony were blooming beautifully, and upon closer inspection, she realized they were newly replaced. It must have been Clyde who asked his assistant to change it for her, right? She didn't want to ask further and packed her things. From now on, she would have to take care of herself alone. After moving in for a few days, the lights next door never turned on again, according to the neighbors. It seemed the person next door no longer lived there. At night, she ate instant noodles alone, listening to the patter of rain outside, feeling a loneliness she had never experienced before. The doorbell rang. Rose got up to answer the door and opened it. A man stood outside, drenched from head to toe, and the moment he saw her, he pulled her into an embrace. "Why did you block me?" Clyde asked in a low voice. Rose, her body swayed slightly, her hanging hand trembling faintly. "You? How did you come back?" Clyde, his large hand pressed the back of her head firmly against his chest. "The doctor is here to check if you've been taking your medicine on time." Rose couldn't help but feel flustered upon hearing his words. "I. The man lowered his head and directly sealed her lips. Rose blushed deeply, wanting to push him away, but her hands couldn't seem to lift. The man went from gentle to deep, and she responded clumsily. Clyde scooped her up in his arms and headed toward the bedroom. Rose felt her heart racing wildly, a mix of excitement and nervousness. With a muffled groan, she gripped Clyde's hand tightly from the pain. Clyde clearly hadn't expected her to be a first-timer, softening his movements. "I'm sorry, I hurt you." Rose held him tightly, gently touching his back, feeling as if this were all a dream. She had never imagined that her Dr. Clyde would come back for her. Tears slid down the corners of her eyes as she whispered hoarsely, "Dr. Clyde, I've missed you a little." Clyde couldn't help but smile. "I've missed you too, so much." During his time abroad, he constantly thought about contacting Rose. A night of passion. The next day, Rose woke up feeling as if her entire body was falling apart. She looked at the empty space beside her and busied herself. Walking out, she saw Dr. Clyde in a white shirt, just setting breakfast on the table. Rose stared at this scene, lost in thought for a long time. Clyde noticed her gaze and turned his head to look at her. "Come and have breakfast." Rose walked over step by step and sat down at the dining table. Clyde placed a napkin in front of her, then set the breakfast before her. "Don't eat instant noodles anymore, understand?" Rose listened to his serious tone and nodded with a smile. Clyde, looking at the smile on her face, he couldn't help but reach out and pinch her cheek. "It hurts." He quickly withdrew his hand. Rose lowered her head while eating breakfast, never realizing a meal could bring such joy. After finishing breakfast, Clyde accompanied her for a walk outside, as exercise could help alleviate her muscle stiffness. She held his arm as they walked through the crowd, feeling for the first time that she was no longer alone. "Dr. Clyde, why did you suddenly decide to go abroad?" "Still calling me Dr. Clyde?" Clyde lowered his head and said. Rose was taken aback for a moment before replying. Clyde. Clyde didn't respond to her words. Back when he went abroad, he thought Rose still loved Rex, so he wanted to step aside for her sake. But only now did he realize her true feelings. "Fortunately, it wasn't too late," he asked. "Do you still remember the question I asked you before?" Rose thought for a long time but couldn't come up with an answer. Shaking her head, "What? Come home with me for a while," Clyde said. Rose was momentarily speechless. In her current condition, going back with Clyde. "Don't worry, I'll handle everything." Clyde knew exactly what she was concerned about. Rose lowered her head and after a long pause, finally said, "Let's just forget it." She didn't have the courage, to be honest, even now. Everything still felt too much like a dream. Clyde didn't pressure her. "If you don't want to go, then we won't. Do you want to get something delicious to eat?" Rose smiled at him. "Yes." While shopping, they bought various snacks, but because Rose was in poor health, Clyde only allowed her to eat a little. In the evening, Clyde held her hand as they walked home. Rose realized for the first time that dating could be like this. When she was married to Rex, she felt as if she was living alone. Having never had much contact with other men, she wondered if everything would have been different had she met Clyde earlier. Back at home, she was painting on the balcony, while Clyde was writing medical case reports. Though each was busy with their own tasks, Rose didn't feel lonely. Such peaceful days passed quickly. Time flew by, and 2 months had slipped away in a flash. It was starting to get cold outside. Rose stood on the balcony wrapped in her coat, her figure so thin it seemed a gust of wind could knock her over. Clyde saw her standing outside and walked up behind her. "Rose." Rose turned around at the shout behind her and smiled at him. "Dr. Clyde, what brings you here?" Clyde felt a tightness in his chest and simply said, "I came for your routine checkup." These days, Rose's memory fluctuates, sometimes even forgetting who he is. Today was all right. At least she still recognized him. "Dr. Clyde, can I skip the checkup?" "Why?" Clyde looked at her with concern. Rose lowered her head, then gazed at the horizon. "I want to go for a walk." "Okay, I'll go with you." "No need. I'll go out by myself. You should head back early too." Rose didn't realize she was now living together with Clyde. Clyde knew her illness was fluctuating, and forcing the truth on her would only make her condition worse. Rose walked to the house, gazing at the unfamiliar surroundings with a sense of bewilderment. How could I be living here? This area is quiet and suitable for recuperation, so you asked me to help you find this house, Clyde explained smoothly, though his throat felt unexpectedly choked. Rose shook her head, unable to recall anything. She simply didn't want to think about it and went out. Clyde watched her lonely figure with concern and followed her. Rose walked outside as snowflakes drifted from the sky. She looked up, a faint smile curling at the corners of her lips. It's snowing. She looked around. Someone was supposed to be with her, but who was that person? Why couldn't she remember? A wave of dizziness washed over her. Rose blacked out and collapsed heavily to the ground. Rose. Clyde hurried over, lifted her from the snow, and frantically called for an ambulance. Rose, you mustn't be hurt. He gazed at the woman's serene yet pale face, feeling a fear he had never known before. After the ambulance arrived, Clyde tightly held Rose's hand all the way to the hospital. Some nurses at the hospital saw Clyde bringing Rose in and couldn't help feeling sorry for him. Dr. Clyde is so handsome, yet he's stuck with someone who's divorced and critically ill. Exactly. Who knows what's so great about that Rose? Clyde changed into surgical scrubs and headed to the operating room. When he heard their conversation, his knife-like glare silenced them instantly. The surgery proceeded with unusual danger. After coming out, the hospital director arrived and patted Clyde's shoulder. Dr. Clyde, can your body handle this? Over the past 2 months, Rose has been admitted to the ICU 3 times. Clyde gave the woman on the hospital bed a deep look and curled the corner of his lips. As long as she's here, I can hold on. The dean shook his head. Dr. Clyde had never been known to have someone he liked before. But who would have thought he'd be so devoted once he met the one? On the sickbed, Rose woke up 3 days later. Finding herself lying in a hospital bed, her parched lips parted slightly as she uttered, Clyde. Clyde stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, hearing his name called. He hurried over. Rose, are you okay? I'm doing fine. Rose smiled at him. Then noticing his weary expression, asked, did I? Again, it's nothing, you just fainted. Clyde cut her off, reaching out to pat her head. Rose knew he was comforting her and said nothing more, but she clearly felt her health deteriorating day by day. She probably wouldn't last much longer. To be honest, she felt somewhat unwilling. She had just found someone she liked, and now she had to leave like this. Clyde, I'm hungry, Rose said. All right, I'll get you something to eat right away. Rose nodded with a smile. After Clyde left, she slowly withdrew her gaze and got up from the hospital bed. She walked out of the hospital, where a thick layer of white snow had already accumulated outside. Unsure of where to go, she eventually found herself at the psychiatric hospital where Tina was staying. Rose gave the doctor enough money and even hired a specialized company to manage a fund for Tina's care. Arriving at Tina's hospital room, she saw Tina sitting blankly by the window, murmuring softly, Rose hasn't come back yet. The food is getting cold. Rose's footsteps froze. The nurse asked, Mrs. Rose, would you like to go in and see her? Rose shook her head. No need. I'll just watch from here. Parents always want what's best for their children. She thought if her father and brother hadn't met with misfortune, their family would surely have been very fortunate. Some things are simply fate, entirely beyond human control. Rose bought a one-way ticket with no return journey. Along the way, she watched the scenery rushing past outside the window, closing her eyes to recall her past. Fortunately, in this life, there is still Mr. Porter to bring her warmth, but precisely because of this, she couldn't be selfish. She couldn't let Mr. Porter spend his days in fear and worry, accompanying someone with a serious illness. Clyde couldn't find Rose when he returned, only the note she left on the table. Mr. Porter, I'm leaving. Don't look for me. Someone as good as you deserves to find a person who can match you for a lifetime. He clutched the note tightly, his eyes bloodshot. Grabbing a nurse to ask, have you seen the patient from room 601? The nurse shook her head. He went on to ask one after another, frantically searching the entire hospital, then went out to look, returned to search again, until the sky darkened. He still hadn't found the person. He seemed to have lost his soul, grabbing people and asking if they had seen the person in the photo on his phone. People shook their heads one after another. On the other side, at Darren's home group, Rex suddenly received a message from his bodyguard, saying that Rose had left Clyde. His eyes flickered with surprise as he immediately stood up and headed outside. Book me the same train ticket. Perhaps he still had one last chance as the day rushed by. Rose, after getting off the car, she found a hotel to stay in. The sky outside was gloomy, and it felt like a snowstorm was about to hit. The hotel was run by a couple. Seeing her alone, they kindly asked, didn't you come with your family? Rose shook her head. It seemed she had no family left. The landlady sighed and shook her head as she watched her lonely figure. In their remote and impoverished area, there were hardly any travelers, and if there were, they were usually families on road trips. Like Rose, women who appear fragile and are alone are few and far between. Rose was unaware of their pitying glances. Upstairs, the room was clean, in an old-fashioned building. Standing on the balcony, one could see the scenery outside. There were no streetlights here. The hazy moonlight combined with the snow made the view unclear, yet it was strangely comforting. That night, she barely slept. Early the next morning, she got up and asked the owner if there were any houses for sale nearby. The owner told her there was a small town further ahead, a county seat that also served as a tourist area. Rose went there and, seeing the quaint houses, photographed them with her camera. Subsequently, they found a house for sale, purchased it, and moved in on the same day. She called someone to clean up, but soon after, the doorbell rang. Upon opening the door, she saw Rex standing at the entrance. Rose tried to close the door, but he blocked it with his hand. "Why did you come to such a far place alone? You promised me." Rose hadn't finished speaking when Rex cut her off. "I know I promised to set you free, but I never said we couldn't still be friends." Not needed. Rose saw she couldn't stop him, so she simply let go of the door. Rex followed up. "Why did you leave Clyde without saying goodbye? You investigated me." Rose was more furious than ever before. Rex, seeing her emotional outburst, quickly made an excuse. "It was Clyde who came to me saying you'd disappeared." Rose finally sheathed her sharp edges, sat down panting. "My matters have nothing to do with you now. Please leave. I just want to stay here quietly. If you truly have feelings for me, keep it secret from Clyde." Rex only realized the truth upon hearing these words. It wasn't that Rose disliked Clyde, but that she didn't want to burden him, which is why she left. Rex felt an unprecedented heaviness in his heart. Rex didn't know how he left. After leaving, he looked at Rose's residence, picked up his phone, and called Clyde. By the early hours of the next morning, Clyde had already arrived, eager to see Rose. Watching her come downstairs, leaning against the wall as she walked out, he walked over carefully. Afraid of startling her, Rose heard someone call her name from behind. Turning around, she saw Clyde and froze in surprise. "Who are you?" Clyde felt a chill in his chest, thinking she might be having an episode, and stepped forward. "I'm your attending physician." "I don't know you." Rose turned to leave. Clyde noticed a flicker of panic in her eyes. He instantly realized she was lying. His expression turned cold. "Rose, I want to ask you a question. If I were seriously ill, would you stay with me?" Rose turned her back to him, feeling inexplicably upset. She would definitely stay with him. Back when Rex gave her the cold shoulder for 3 years, she endured it all. All she wanted was love. If she had it, she wouldn't even care about her own life. Clyde, without waiting for her answer, he slowly walked behind her and continued. "If I were seriously ill and then ran away from you, do you think that would be fair to you?" Rose, her hanging hand unconsciously tightened slightly. Clyde, he took her hand in his from behind. "Do you have any idea how worried everyone was when you suddenly left?" Rose, she bit her lip hard and remained silent. Clyde pulled her into his embrace. "I don't want to be with anyone but you. I hope you understand. This is a warning. If there's a next time, I won't come looking for you." Rose had tears welling up in her eyes. Tears could no longer be held back and streamed down, landing on Clyde's hand. "I'm sorry." Rose turned around and hugged Clyde back. Meanwhile, on the tree-lined avenue, Rex unconsciously tightened his grip on the steering wheel. 1 month later, financial news. Porter family's third son Clyde marries in high-profile ceremony. Bride is the first ex-wife of Darren family's group president. As soon as the news broke, the internet was flooded with onlookers. It was truly unexpected that Rex's first ex-wife Rose would marry into the Porter family. After all, Rex's second ex-wife is also from the Porter family, though of a lower generation. From now on, Sylvia will have to call Rose Auntie. With everything settled, Sylvia trembled with rage. "Why should I? I refuse to call that bitch anything." Sylvia's mom comforted her from the side. "What can we do? Don't be fooled by that illegitimate child Clyde. Even though he works as a doctor normally, your father says he's practically swallowing up the Porter family behind the scenes." Sylvia widened her eyes in disbelief. Sylvia's mom patted her hand and sighed. "Well, the original plan was just to find an excuse to keep Rex around. Who knew you'd be so useless? Now we have no choice but to live under someone else's roof." Sylvia twitched at the corner of her mouth, speechless. On the other side, Clyde bought a seaside villa. Rose lived inside. "This must be expensive. Should we just stay at our old place?" Originally, she wanted to say that she still had money in her account, but she thought Dr. Clyde probably wouldn't like using a woman's money. "It's fine. If there's no money, your husband will earn it." Rose blushed when she heard him refer to himself as husband. She reached out and embraced his strong body, feeling as if she was holding the whole world in her arms. I love you too. Rose smiled. Fortunately, her Dr. Clyde has always been there. Time will not fail, and the future is promising.